Welcome to work. You okay? Why? Oh, yeah. YouTube chat's about to be back in a big way. Might be next week though. We'll see. Tom is so fucking fair. I'll tell you about the YouTube chat, alright? I'll tell you about it. I'm gonna get started in a little bit. Too. I love him as well, Andrew JD. What up? What up? How's everybody doing? Welcome. Good morning. Good morning. We're not playing the full song because there's a lot to do today, all right? Not a ton of time. Okay? Guys, we are dying, all of us. The seconds of our meaningless existence passing by like grains of sand. And so, no, I don't have time today for the extra 2 minutes to finish the flamenco song. Do you? Do you have time? Anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope that you have a good week this week. I want to shout out to Nate the lawyer. I hear he's going through some health stuff right now, and this is a guy who has always been really nice to me and very cordial. And when I went on the Goober Legal Whatever panel, he was definitely a nice foil to have there. And so I hope he is doing okay. I really wanted to collab with him. I never got around to DMing him. I think he's going through some surgery, but I hope everything's good. So shout out Nate the lawyer. Get better soon. I saw some tweets from like Good Logic, those people, Ricada, others. So I know in many respects we don't agree with those types politically, but really, hope he does better and that we can collab soon. Anyway, where the hell was I? Yeah, that's a little shout out Nate the lawyer. In other news, in less depressing news, we love Nate the lawyer. Yeah. There was a discussion he had with Good Logic where I thought he did very well. I think we made a short of that where he kind of just, I think it was on the Hortman assassination or something. I think we clipped that up. But hope you guys are doing well. What a week, folks. What's going to happen in MAGA world in our country? Before we get started, some housekeeping. First off, Connor is going to be on probably in the next 30 or so minutes, 25 to 30 minutes, and we're going to have a conversation. I feel like you guys like that. Those videos I do with Counterpoints always tend to do well, even when they're not like strictly speaking debates. For whatever reason, I just get the sense that a lot of people enjoy those discussions, and they do well in the algo. So, if you like them, definitely like the stream and tell me that you like them. Other point of order on the chats. Yeah, I got some intel that they're actually still enforcing the merge chat function, and so I finally have my graphic design type people working on like a separate layout for the stream so we can not merge the chats. We might like tweak some of the design stuff too, but in general, that's just life. So right now we're back on only Twitch, but I can still see the YouTube, and that's the important part, isn't it, Faith Adams? Did you do the reading, Faith? How about you, Andrew JD? Did you do the reading? Because you're on call today, so you better be ready. I put $1,000 that Trump gets impeached before the end of 2026. What are my odds? That is a stupid bet. Who knows why that's a stupid bet? That's like free money that you just gave to someone. It's due to the sexual tension that people like your debates together. What's that show that's like, because of my sexual something? Is that 30 Rock? My sexuality. You did not do the reading. Good morning, Piss Corp. You guys and your nicknames. So you're not going to make this money because the new Congress isn't inaugurated until 2027. Ya ding dong. 2026 is the election, but they don't get actually put into office until the next year. So you basically took a bet that some Republicans are going to vote to impeach Trump. But why would they do that? They would need like Mike Johnson's cooperation. President can only get impeached once. Well, he's been impeached twice, so. Huh? There literally isn't anything Trump could do that would result in enough Republicans in Congress voting to impeach. And by enough, we mean 3. That's what we mean by enough. Not 20, not 10, not 5, 3. Yeah, that's my bet. Your bet is that you'll get 3 Republican House members to convince Mike Johnson to like hold impeachment inquiries into Trump after they won every branch of Congress and the presidency. That's your bet. I'll take that bet with you right now if you want. I'll take half odd. Well, hang on. What would I have to? Oh shit. No, you can put down 50 cents and I'll put down $1,000. How's that? I know it's just impeachment. You think I don't know that it's just impeachment? Or maybe you responded to that other guy. I'll take it. Yeah. Well, I can't afford the because I assume if you're putting down 1,000, your odds there are like pretty astronomical. I'm still a little risk averse. I'll take that bet. Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Massey. I even think though you would need the cooperation of the speaker there. I'm not sure that an impeachment vote can be put on a discharge petition. And if you did, you wouldn't get Marjorie Taylor Greene to do it or Boebert. And it's important you guys know why, because like 50 cents for 1,000. Yeah, the odds are insane. Like what would you be are you hitting the 7 figures? Pretty insane odds. If you gave up 1,000 real dollars, are you just like rich? I mean, if you're just giving money away, you might as well super chat or something. Wait, but you're a 9 to 5 guy, right? You're doing data entry right now. I'm just kidding. It might be an important data job. Who knows? Discharge petition. JD does not have the stones to orchestrate that kind of coup with Johnson. He wouldn't do it. It's too risky. Can you initiate an impeachment vote on a discharge petition? I doubt it. Let's see. Let's ask AI. Like all the people who I debate, they just go and ask AI stuff. It drives me crazy. Even on Twitter. Can you believe people on the internet are doing this? Can a discharge petition in the House of Reps include an impeachment vote? Oh, yes. Oh, shit. That's what Google says. Google AI. Okay, but you're not going to get that. All right. So I was wrong about one little thing. It happens. Yeah, I don't think that she's going to permanently burn the Trump bridge. Grok, is this true? Yo, how do you guys know exactly what's on my mind? And when they just start bullying Grok, they're like, but did you take this? It's so fucking good. There's so many people having fake conversations with AI. I think Grok is going to be the most dangerous element in the information war going forward. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. What camera are you using? A Sony A7 something. I don't know. Sony with the something millimeter lens on certain settings. The next civil war is a war of ideas. And Elon buying Twitter was the biggest territorial conquest so far. Thanks so much for the follow on Twitch. It means a lot when you follow me on Twitch. And when you like the stream, you're going to like the way you look. Oh, we got our daily kick viewer. If by some miracle enough Republicans distance themselves from Trump, could Mike Johnson create some scenario where he has no option? He's not going to impeach, guys. I don't know what to say. 9 to 5 job, but it's an enterprise software as service. Software something as service. That's SaaS, right? Software something as service. But congratulations. Why isn't there a congratulation? A congratulation is in order. Congratulations, Kennel Life. Is pi real or is it just an idea? I think pi. It's impossible for pi to be real. Pi is not a thing that exists. It's an idea. It's a concept. Software as a service. Nice. Nice. See, I don't usually include articles in those abbreviations. So it's odd. Depends, apple or cherry pie. Very funny, guys. I feel like my audience or the nerd tables from back in the day who like these little puns, these little dad jokes. You like the dad jokes? How about that World War debate video we watched yesterday? I almost want to put it on again, but I know I'll be killed if I do it. But it was pretty funny, hey? You live for dad jokes? We're corny nerds. The Andrew Wilson announcement. Unless I have a whole new crew, because it's all the yesterday people, yesterday night when I streamed. Have none of you seen the World War debate? Word War debate? Video by Andrew Wilson? No, I shouldn't reuse content. Not when I have actual content. You gotta pull Tom in and give him some pointers. Word War debate. What happened? Yeah, boss. Triple E. That's good memes, man. Good memes. Tell us you didn't see it. You watched the VOD this morning. Oh, okay, Andrew. If you had to recommend an Andrew Wilson for me to review, which one should I do? That question doesn't even. I'm having trouble with the question. Zero, cool. Just give us a recap. So Andrew Wilson created the new debate Premier League in Atlantic City called Word War Debate. And the entire time I was reviewing it, I thought, and I had already pre-watched it, I thought it was World War Debate. Like I was literally making jokes about the name, and I didn't even read the name correctly. Because that's how bad the name is. Because though I do want to participate, I know they have ambitions high, and I'm very, very, very low in terms of clout for the premier debate establishment. But I would genuinely be so interested in going to this venue and meeting other people with different worldviews. Where was I going with this? Anyway, the name is Word War Debate. And we were brainstorming yesterday, like, isn't it better just to be Word War? Or better yet, let's just scrap that whole war thing. You don't need debate in the title. Like Piers Morgan Uncensored. Oh, rolls off the tongue. Crossfire. Hell yeah. Big Papa Fascist. Now that's a name. But Word War Debate, I can't say it. I don't even know if it's better or worse than World War Debate. War of the Words. This is too wordy. Why not just war? All right. Well, I'm going to watch it again for people who haven't seen it, but don't get at me. And that's why, by the way, I couldn't find it on Twitter because I was typing in World War Debate. And so it didn't come up because I was typing it wrong. Get a philosopher for the next conversation about objective morality? I don't know. I feel like I handled it decently. And if you think I didn't, why don't you come on and explain why you thought it was lacking? Here it is. This is the official. But I would be interested if you have commentary. Why don't you just hop in? But after I talk to Connor. So we're talking to Connor today. And in the next in the next small period of time. One sec. I'll try not to be. But notice how when you watch this, again, I'm not going to pause as much. Not going to be a pause, Andy. Notice what you think about the camera angles, what you think about the theme, the presentation, the dress, whether you see any stains on articles of clothing, the color scheme, if you like the synth music that's raging in the background, and whether you think that there's any like kind of homoerotic tension in the kind of things they're doing and the kind of words they're using. Those are like the key. And then also if Sam Tripoli, if you think and agree with me that he sounds kind of like a Joker goon or something. Hey, yeah, the Batman. Yeah. That was my favorite bit. All right. But I'll try to do minimal comment. Oh, and there was one Andrew Wilson dick rider yesterday who was like, you never built anything by yourself. you should be like very you should be very proud of them or something. And he's like wanting me to glaze them more. I'm like, sorry, dude. Sorry. Here's word war debate. And then, yeah, keep an eye on the things I said to keep an eye on. Joe Rogan is also funding this. Wow. Joe Rogan? The Joe Rogan? What about Joey Diaz?
The Enlightened Network is proud to present Word War Debate.
Word
the premier
War
debate league.
Debate.
I'm Ben Swan, and I'm here to introduce the new gold standard of debates. Every statement, every argument, every counterpoint is tested.
Counterpoints.
Under the lights in real time. Let's send it over now to Andrew Wilson and Sam Tripoli inside the
Hell yeah,
ACX1
look at that
studios
logo.
In Atlantic City. Guys.
Look at that logo, lightning.
What we decided to do was get
SS.
a great team of people together.
Three. Count them, 3 logos. And this camera angle, like I said, bit low.
And put together some of the funnest and most riveting debates that you've ever seen. And I'm going to moderate.
Thank you so much for the
debates.
membership.
And this is going to be fantastic.
And if you're lucky, maybe at the end, Andrew might debate. We don't know. Why would
Michael
we have
Jordan.
Michael Jordan sitting aside coaching?
Look at their fucking bit. They do a little bit.
We're going to have the best.
Throw him in the game, coach.
And we're going to put it in the best venue.
There's debates all over the place, but there's no brand of excellence where you go, this is where the best go to bang.
They go to
and
bang.
To that effect, that's exactly what we're putting together in this venue. Now we're going to bring that standard of having all that moderation excellence, where I can moderate this debate fairly. A lot of people try their hand at debate moderation.
And it's tough.
And it's actually far more difficult than people think to do it right. Coming up with the gold
Synth
standard
music.
for the format was critical. And we worked on it. My entire team worked on it, along with Tripoli's entire team. And we came up with just a banger of a venue.
A banger. We're going to take pro sports with pro debates.
We're going to bang.
Create a beautiful hybrid. What you're going to get are the best of the best.
I love this,
going
actually.
At it,
This is a great
the
fucking...
smartest, the fastest, the most ruthless.
The Batman.
Put up or shut up, okay?
Put up or shut up, Batman.
People being able to eat, people being able to drink, people being able to actually have a good time.
Hell yeah.
They actually want to meet the people who represent their worldviews, and they want to break bread with them. They want to actually talk to them. They want to kind of have input on these ideas, because most of these debaters are representing whole worldviews. Whole worldviews on behalf of people who can't. The mechanic can't do it. The mechanic can't go on CNN and tell these pundits to go f themselves.
Yeah.
That ends up being the job of you, the representation of the worldview.
And we're like, what's the best place to do that? There's only one place. ACX.
And tell these pundits can't. The mechanic can't do it.
Sorry.
The mechanic can't go on CNN and tell these pundits to go f themselves.
Yeah.
That ends up being the job of you.
They kept that in. Oh, no, the stains. Hey, I want to be on this. Do not send them this clip.
Of the worldview.
And we're like, what's the best place to do it at? There's only one place.
Where's the best place to do that, Joker?
ACX1 Studios in Atlantic City is where the champions will be named.
If you want to cover it, you want to stream it, you want to restream it, you want to mix it up, you're more than welcome.
Don't fuck with our IP
until we get to the main event. When we're talking about the VIP side, right? We wanted to make sure that we had a 3rd floor lounge right on the ocean.
Oh, yeah, fucking
right on the
cute.
ocean.
This venue is beautiful.
It's a beautiful venue for I made this joke yesterday. I shouldn't reuse my jokes.
And what we can do, and what we are doing, is we're going to make sure that if you get a VIP ticket, one, it's affordable. Two, that when you come out and you come up to the VIP section, you're right in front of the ocean.
Shit's gonna happen to you when you come up to the VIP section. We're not gonna, just know that this couch will be there.
Nice fireplace roaring, huge area for us to relax and have a good time post-debate. We want you to be able to meet the representations of your worldview. That's never really been done before.
It's never been done.
And it's
never been able to talk to people.
Type of venue that we're really looking forward to sharing with all of you.
It's real simple. All you're going to have to do is go to work.
I can't get over his, that was the best line read they had of that line. Andrew's faces me right now. That was the best line read. Hang on, let's do it.
Done before. And it's a whole different type of venue that we're really looking forward to sharing with all of you.
It's real simple. All you're going to have to do is go to wordwardebate.com. Grab your tickets now. This will sell out.
You know what? I love the passion. And Rob, the way he was selling it, he really hooked. He's like, this is going to be the best. This is going to be big. This has big people behind it. And I'm like, fuck. Sign me up, coach. I want to be on a prelim. That said, can we change the name? Word War Debate?
Wordwardebate.com. Make sure you go there.
They can't even say it.
Sell out.
Wordwardebate.com. Make sure you go there.
And it all goes down January 10th, Atlantic City,
the
at
bet.
ACX1 Studios, right next to Caesar's Palace.
This debate plus the orgy with the influencer idea is really unique and cool. Thanks, Andrew. This makes me hate men. Not them. They love men. I'm so joking. This is too far. I can't believe I recycled that content. I just wanted you guys to see it. I promise you, we spent like an hour on that video yesterday. So you guys got, you got off easy. That's what Andrew said to Tripoli when they went to AC. Whiny white. Why does it have to bring race into it, guys? Is it just me, or is there like a significant amount of anti-white racism going around? Hey, don't blame the messenger. Folks, one other thing. Genuinely, I think it's cool they're doing in-person events. We're poking fun. We're having fun. Like, obviously, these guys' worldview sucks. But, they're doing debate shows. I would like to be included. I would like some inclusions, all right? Or at least some people that I know. So if you know anybody who's associated with this joint venture, hit me up. I used to know someone involved, but he might be blacklisting me. He might be blacklisting me. It's gonna be big no matter. Dude, I want to be a part of it. Can't we poke fun? Come on. Can't we enjoy the announcement together? I'm spreading the word war debate. I'm spreading it. We do need to change that name, though. And the logo. The logo looks like Legos. I mean, look at it. One sec. So this is the Nazi Lego logo. It's a mouthful. The logo's like both too simple and too much going on. We needed a third level ocean view. We needed that. We needed the ocean. It's very important to our vision to have the ocean there because of all the fire. Do we use seawater to put fire out? You ever think about that? I think they did that in California. Or is that not true? Clip art amalgamation. Yeah. It's too much warble for the short phrase. I just feel like if they said the Premier League, oh, but then you have the problem with the EPL, right? Debate League. But it's not really like... It reminds me of the kind of like YouTube boxing feel, which is, kind of chill. Finding the cheese is what they want us to do. Let's just chill. Where were we? Yo, Liverpool. When is the world draft debate? They filmed it like the Hunger Games propaganda. Salt water destroys nature. I hate that. I hate that salt water is undrinkable. Very inconvenient. Because there's so much of it. There's so much salt water everywhere. On Earth. What's the ratio? Is it like 1% fresh, 99% salty? So much salinity. Taking a stance on salt water. Word War second draft. We just need a second opinion on the title. They should have... those consultants that did Bidenomics? We needed to bring those guys to name this. Because that was great. Or the people who said... What did they say? They have some like clever slogans. Right? They did she's for they them. That rolled off the tongue. Very hateful. It really got the message across. There were discussions of filtering seawater to combat Cali's water issue, but it's difficult. It's not world war debate, it's word war debate. I saw the video of Andrew getting triggered, but the thing is, I don't really like the personal attacks. I don't really do those. That said, he kind of initially brought it to that level. He's like, "You're a stupid bitch. You don't even know what's going on," or something like that. Like, "You dumb whore," or I forget what exactly he said. Something to that effect. Hang on, we'll get the audio. We'll get the audio for that clip. Okay, I don't want to see in 4 months that you... It'll actually... I'll start saying it so much that I'll actually like it. I'll actually start liking the name, and I'll just say, I'm going to go on Word War Debate. I might just buy a ticket to go watch Word War Debate. Now I'm getting it, I'm starting to see the vision. You lick sniz. Oh, yeah, that's the clip. That's the clip we're going to look at. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I think I have the clip. Oh, no, I don't. Let me try to find it. I'm just going to type sniz Andrew Wilson. Maybe that'll come up. Oh, Live and Learn is today. Oh, I think this is it.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married.
Oh, shit. But do you have the intro there?
Frame. And I'm just going to be totally honest with you.
All right.
I will never be able to...
Okay. Here we go. I want to show it to you. My computer's being slow. Sorry, guys. I'll show you this. And I don't approve. I don't approve of going after families. All right. That said, some comments I might have.
Try to rephrase this. I'm going to reframe. And I'm just going to be totally honest with you. I will never be able to convince you of my worldview.
You won't.
Worldview.
I know.
Precept.
But the reason is not because I'm not a great orator, or I don't make good points, or I haven't said things which should be compelling to a person. But Charlie, I just think honestly you're too fucking stupid to understand them.
So, Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you
Under
you lick sniz.
Under your religion.
You lick sniz.
You lick sniz.
What does that
You're a
mean?
fucking dyke. Don't talk shit about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby.
Look at his face, bro. I just have to say, like, it's kind of a little much to go for the personal insult first and then start acting like all fucking butthurt. Like, he definitely, we didn't see the context before this, but he did this big, like, build up, like, I'm the smartest person in the world, and my point's fucking dog shit, pre-sub, fucking Darth Dawkins wannabe type motherfucker. And to do all this build up, like, I'm the fucking greatest, you're just too fucking stupid to get my pre-sub garbage. He really does, and she goes there for sure, but, like, and then he's like, you're gay. But he should have just said, you're gay. That would have been, like, funnier, just because it's like I don't know. But to go there, it just,
Orator.
He just kind of has this, like, virgin energy.
Or I don't make good points, or I haven't said things which should be compelling to a person. But Charlie, I just think, honestly, you're too fucking stupid to understand them.
So, Andrew, can I sell you on my worldview?
Yes.
Your wife has 3 baby daddies and has been married twice before.
And you you lick sniz.
Under your religion.
You lick sniz.
What does that
You're a
mean?
fucking dyke. Don't talk shit about my wife, you stupid bitch. Shut your fucking mouth. Shut your stupid bitch mouth.
Your wife with the 3 baby
What did I
daddies?
just say?
Your
Dyke?
wife with the 3
Sorry,
baby
dog.
daddies?
Sorry, dyke. Is she morally inconsequential?
I love this, but they can't handle anything. They can't handle a single. Now, I saw you out too, guys. All right, I saw you out when Hutch says that I'm not gonna lose SNAP benefits. All right, so hey, liberal surrender hands. We all have our fucking breaking point.
Sequential in comparison to your ditch licking?
Do the men that you try to...
Do the women that you...
Like, why are you throwing all lesbians under the bus, bro? Like, if she were black, thank God for Andrew. Thank God.
try
show
to?
your hatred against.
Do the women
they,
that
like,
you try
convince
to?
them that they shouldn't.
You know,
like,
Charlie, did I
pursue
bring
women? Do they know
Charlie?
that
Did
your
I bring
wife
your
is 5
family?
years older?
Did I bring any of your
You
family
called me
into?
Word war debate. This is the style of debate. Sorry. We need to. I want to be a part of the word war debate community. Sorry, it's
Anything
stupid.
Did I
You
say
called
anything
me
about
fucking
your
stupid.
family being stupid, Charlie?
could.
It's
You could
because
go
I'm
for it.
better than you, Charlie.
No, it's because you're
I'm better
embarrassed.
than
and
you. I'm better than you. Says that lesbians all are horrible.
know that the traditional values that you try to sell people
Okay.
on are bullshit because
Let's
you
go
are not
through
a
it.
traditional man.
Chuck, let's go through it.
You are
Chuck. Wait, let's look at that face. Oh no. Why do I want a part of it? Because it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be excellent. It's gonna be the premier debate community. I'll have to like actually pay for the debate course that they offer. I think it's only like $1,000, or is it 200? Chuck, show me Georgia. Show me fucking Georgia right now. Dude, bad memories. Bad fucking memories. I don't do this thing. I don't like... People said this also when like, why didn't you bring up the Tenet thing with Tim Pool? I am focused on my arguments, bro. I don't know what it is about me that made me this way, but I don't really want to go there. Oh wait. Update from Counterpoints. Ready when you are. Oh my God, guys. You lick sniz. I think that's the first thing I want to talk to Connor about. Okay. Gonna call you in a hot sec. I think what I have to do, this is unfortunate, but it must be done. So, you like sniz. Rocky Raccoon. seems. Oh my God. What the hell? What the actual? What the fuck, David Blaine? What the fuck? 1 second. Be right back. Huh. We're going to get this right, guys. Yo. I'm
Morning,
fixing my camera. Good morning, sir.
I'm gonna move you over. I'm gonna expand. I'm gonna share my screen with my chat. Make sure we got audio.
You know what? You do whatever you need to, big
All right.
boy.
I'm doing whatever I need to.
We have a lot to talk about, bro.
Dude, we have I'm on the same page.
You and I are on the same page. One thing that you can't say is that we're not on the same page. 1 second. Almost there. You should be able to see me now, I think, right?
I can see you. You're a little bit quiet on my end. I bumped you to 200, so it should be okay.
Okay.
Up. All right. Let me bump you back down.
All right. Wait. I'm testing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
That's pretty good for me.
Okay, 1 second. Last thing so that people can see both of us.
All right. And then, ladies and gentlemen, number one, can you hear Pisco? Number two, is there echo? And number three, is the audio balanced? So while I'm waiting for my chat to respond.
You're on the screen right now, by the way.
Cool.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting, audio's good. All right, cool. So while we're waiting for my chat to respond a little bit, I thought it would be hilarious. We don't have to do anything, okay? But yeah. I thought it would be hilarious if we started a podcast and then we did, we called it Point and Piss. And we had the Calvin and Hobbes, kid who does the, he's like peeing on a symbol. And then it's Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes pissing on the MAGA sign. Or I know that you don't like to lean into the pee memes. So I went with the Pissed Off podcast because I figured we're both grumpy men. So anger is better than urine. So how do you feel about that? Huh?
Do you think I'm white?
No, I know you're Peruvian or whatever, but you're white Hispanic.
Yeah. What is it with white men and being pissed off?
Wait, sorry, what? What's the question?
I'm just joking. No, listen. Let me think about it. The pee stuff. I'll have to think about the pee stuff. But also, Calvin and Hobbes. You understand? Bill Watterson did not want his stuff to be like commercialized. By the way, he's still alive? Bill Watterson's alive, and conceivably, I have to think Bill Watterson is a fan of my show, and so imagine that Bill Watterson is like in my community and sees us like basically misappropriating his creation in the exact way that he for so many years, for decades, fought against. Never been a Calvin and Hobbes movie, never been a Calvin and Hobbes lunchbox. It is a pure creation. It is a comic strip. And what you want to do is so insulting, so beyond the pale, but I'll consider it. I'll think about it.
Death of the author, brother. The second you release your art into the public domain, it no longer belongs to you.
He's alive. And also, but that all that being said, I think for whatever reason, my audience enjoys our interactions. And it's to me, it's a little bizarre because lately we haven't even been fighting. And so I used to understand it when like we were fighting and shit, that people want the sparks. They want to see the sparks fly. Maybe it's a different kind of sparks. You get my drift. And we'll get there. But I don't know. The people like it. It gets good views. And so I appreciate that. Let's talk behind the scenes and we'll see about that. You lick sniz. Did you see that?
Dude. No, hold on. So my audience, dude, what's so funny about this? Okay. So number one, we will find something to fight about, especially when the Democrats get back in power and you're like, oh, Democrats good. And I'm like this. And you're like, no, sweep. But the lick sniz, man. Okay. My audience gets pissed off whenever I watch Andrew Wilson and they're like, no, let's not watch Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson sucks. He should kill himself. Like they hate Andrew Wilson. but then the engagement is through the roof because they hate him so much that like chats popping off, super chats are rolling in, and all that kind of stuff. So I have a perverse incentive to make my chat angry. But then, yeah, I saw that segment where he was debating Lefty Charlie or something.
Yeah, I guess we have our own Charlie. Hold on.
So if you're talking about, but in my opinion, he got so pressed, and by the way, like I don't hate Andrew or anything, but he got so pressed over his personal life to the point that he was like legitimately angry. And I think that if you own your shit, you typically don't get that insulted if you're owning your shit.
Yeah, I think you and I both. Well, actually, who was it that went after your wife? Was it Rob?
Yeah.
But she was commenting. And then you said some shit. I typically don't like to go there. But I think that if you're going to
I called him the F-slur. He said my wife was flirting with him. I told him to go fuck himself. Realistically, though, if I had to differentiate, I'm guilty of a smidge of a hypocrisy here. But if I had to be honest with myself, it's not that I'm legitimately pressed that my wife is flirting with Rob. Okay, that's not what.
You're not worried about that?
No, I'm not too worried about that. I'm talking to Pisco. We're talking about Rob Noor.
Okay.
Were you legitimately flirting with Rob Noor on Twitter?
No.
Was I flirting with Rob Noor on Twitter?
Yeah.
I will sooner put a gun in my mouth.
Okay, I don't know if you could hear that.
Everyone heard that.
Okay, well then.
Hi, Mrs. Points. I never heard your voice.
I wasn't
before.
too worried about Mrs. Points flirting with Rob Noor, and everybody heard you.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Also, did you see that article about how they did genetic testing on Hitler's DNA and found out that he had a micro penis?
Yeah.
I think Rob.
Okay. Thank you. I love you.
What the hell? Am I the only Rob defender left on the left?
Dude, Mrs. Point, everybody thinks that I'm like the super asshole, and I am, but Mrs. Points is a fucking savage. Like, obviously, like I had to marry a savage.
And I took that personally. Well, yeah, I remember I don't know why I did like a life interview of you. Remember that? I did like a 60 minutes interview of you.
Yeah.
Or it was a conversation or something. And the way you described it, I thought it was that you both complimented each other in terms of
we do. It's a double-edged sword because obviously if she's being funny and callous and rude and I'm being funny and callous and rude, sometimes the humor doesn't always land, so it's a double-edged sword. But I would rather have it this way because it's fun and it's funny.
Well, I do have to say, even though I don't love going after like family or personal stuff, if you're styling yourself as like a masculine debater, and did you see the announcement video for Word War Debate? They're doing this.
Sorry, what?
Word War Debate. It's the premier debating. Oh shit! See, I'm spreading the good word, and so even though I'm making fun of it, like their gay little innuendos and stuff, and I'm not using that pejoratively. I just mean that.
Is it a debate club?
It's like a debate invite thing, and it's going to be huge, and Sam Tripoli's involved. Yeah, you have to watch it. It's something to review.
But
yeah, adjust it.
One of the things that I think you need to get into if you're not already, I think that your legal background has prepared you for argument, arguing and debating. And I also think that Twitch and YouTube politics probably prepared you for that as well. The Raging Tomato is a right-wing person who is Crucible adjacent, who sets up all those debates. And there's this guy who keeps showing up on Modern Day Debate and keeps showing up on Raging Tomato that I've bumped into twice now, named Cooley. And Cooley, the No Fugazi podcast. Cooley apes Andrew Wilson's arguments, but doesn't understand any of them. And so they start down with like, well, you don't even believe in God. So how can you determine anything? Isn't everything just arbitrary at this point? And then they use the word equivocation wrong, where they like equivocate while, and by the way, like equivocation, as far as I know, definitionally, is using an overly vague term in order to like try to make a line of argumentation that isn't honest. And so they will equivocate while accusing you of equivocation. And so like
there's a more technical meaning he might be referencing, which is to like to use two different meanings for a term. So this often happens actually with these Christian debaters, is they'll equivocate on the term God. So they'll say, for example, do you deny God? And when they do that, they're making an argumentation with respect to all God concepts. That's what they mean by God. So the God term is used in that sense to identify a more generic category of any type of God concept. But when they argue that God is real, using that as like sort of a baseline, they'll be arguing for the Christian God specifically. So that's an example of an equivocation that you might be referencing.
Yeah, so if you deny God, you deny any order
God
or
concept,
creation in the universe. Whereas if you buy into it, then you must necessarily buy into their definition of God.
So that
that's
the way that triggers me is when people use equivocation to refer to an equivalence. So you're equivocating between two things, as in like you're making a false equivalence. That's what really triggers me.
Yeah, no, that's the thing that I've heard dozens of times as well, is people use equivocate to mean make equivalent. And I was like, I don't think that's right.
Yeah. But I would love to discuss it, because I had my first most recent. I've been watching these kind of God debates all the time and the precept stuff for a while now. And so I'm very familiar with how these conversations tend to go. I think that's, by the way, one of the reasons why Andrew won't debate me and has put like special rules against me that I don't understand him to be putting on other people. Is because I'm familiar. I happen to be interested enough in these little debates to know that
I would say just float around for a bit, and then eventually he'll get bored, and then he'll be like, you know what?
Yeah,
Pisco, let's go.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, like, I would love to have that discussion with him. Real quick, back to Andrew. When you're styling yourself as that kind of ultra masculine debater, I think losing your cool in response to someone just being like, "Oh, but your wife though," that I think is not very masculine and cool, and it does seem to show a chip on your shoulder, especially since he did this like long lead up where he's like saying, "I think I do really good arguments. I think I'm the best. I think and I think the problem isn't my argument. I think that you're like a stupid bitch." And so like she goes, "You know what? I have a worldview too. That your wife has a baby daddy. It's like 3 people, right? 3 baby daddies and 2 marriages." And for him to be like,
whore.
"Well, fuck, and
you dumb whore.
You dumb whore. You go down on women. Fuck all lesbians." And it's like, what?
That's a wild insult. That's only going to land with people who don't like lesbians. So that's already a small percentage of the population.
Sounds like Dr. Seuss. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like sniz sounds like
it's a weird insult. And then yeah. So the sensitivity around it. And by the way, like I've heard the Steelman, because I heard this. I checked out some of the surrounding drama from Rachel Wilson. Matter of fact, let me just summarize this for people real quick, just in case they're totally lost. Okay, Andrew Wilson, Christian nationalist debater in our space. He likes to go on red pill shows. He did get big by going on the Whatever podcast that actually correlates with his explosive rise. Since then, I would say he's between 3,000 and 7,000 live viewers. So he's considered like a big streamer now. But in reference to debates, oftentimes he'll go down like a Christian nationalist, Greek Orthodox line of argumentation with the presuppositional argumentation that Pisco's been talking about. But then he will get weirdly sensitive about some topics, which, I mean, we all have our foibles, but it does seem weird to be like the king of blood sports debates, but then have this like massive vulnerability. And the vulnerability that was exploited within the past 2 weeks was while debating Lefty Charlie brought up the fact that Andrew Wilson's wife, Rachel Wilson, has children by 3 different fathers. Now, Andrew Wilson's defense was that, well, Rachel Wilson is serial monogamous. Her previous 2 marriages didn't work out for whatever reason. He was happy to marry into this family and become a biological father and a stepfather to this children. And he hasn't made any specific argumentation against, marrying and becoming a stepfather. However, when you're talking about the red pill space, oftentimes he says that he's not red pill. But when you're talking about the red pill space, oftentimes what these guys say is get rich, ignore women, use wealth, clout, power, and money in order to basically play the field and date a bunch of like biological tens, hot girls, and fuck around and do whatever you want. But if you get married, then it needs to be a debt-free, tattoo-less virgin,
kissless virgin, hugless virgin.
Right, debt-free, no tattoo virgin, and then that's who you need to marry.
Boyfriend-free girl, Christian style. And I mean,
dude. But that's the hypocrisy. Just to put a little bow on it. That's the hypocrisy. Is no Fugazi, Andrew Wilson, Myron Gaines, Rollo Tomasi. Almost none of them have lived this lifestyle that they advocate for. And so there's like an inherent hypocrisy in what they're advocating for versus what they achieve.
So what I'm hearing from you is that he justifies it as, well, it's not against his worldview. And perhaps it's against the, at least, official worldview, to the extent that that can be extracted, of these red pill adjacent spheres that he walks in, but it's not, strictly speaking, anything that he's ever been against. And I mean, he has the example of Joseph, right? I mean, Joseph is kind of a cuck.
Well, I think people would be upset by Joseph, the stepfather of God, being a cuckold. But he obviously has that example. And then also one of the things that he's appealed to is that Rachel, which I think is sweet in a way, despite Rachel and Andrew being quite abrasive. He says that Rachel is so uniquely a woman of good character that typically stepmoms with multiple fathers and all that kind of stuff, normally they're degenerate, drug addicted pieces of shit. And therefore that's why the relationships won't work out. Whereas Rachel is such a uniquely good human being that he was able to hone in on that. Therefore, that's why they're able to beat the odds of people with multiple baby daddies.
Yeah, you can actually just fall in love with women. You can actually just like love your partner and think that they're special, right? I don't think that needs like justification. Go for it.
No, but I think that's sweet, though. I think that's sweet.
It's sweet. Yeah, I think it's sweet. I think it's fucking sweet.
And you know what? Like them. Okay, so. Do I understand why people are making fun of them for calling into a dating red pill podcast in order to defend their honor against a lesbian and calling her like a stupid horse snizzlicker? Yes. And I also think that Lefty Charlie
leave the gays alone. I mean, why do you have to go after all lesbians? Because this one lesbian went after you.
Well, and weirdly enough,
in defense of herself, really, because he started
Lefty
it.
Charlie, I think she's bi too, because she said that she had like, half a dozen male partners as well. But anyways.
I know, but you can't say that in response to you lick sniz. Actually, I'm bi. Like,
sure. Well, I mean, I wouldn't even defend that anyways. I wouldn't even think it was like something worthy of attack. It's like, okay, I have a different sexual orientation. Fuck you. Which I think Lefty Charlie didn't actually end up defending. I think what she did, though, which was an optical mistake in my feedback, is she did say effectively to a parent, like a father with stepchildren and a mother who had been divorced twice. They said, "Oh, I think your life would have been better if you had aborted your kids." And
she
that
said
might
that?
play. Yeah, she said that. So if you're like a progressive libertine, girl power, girl boss person, that might play for you. But realistically, anybody who's had a kid, that's not going to play well.
Just leave the kids out of it, man. Leave the families out of it. But the thing is, Rachel is involved in the scene. But the thing is, like, I just said that twice. I wish I didn't have these little verbal tics.
I mean, I think if you're going to call yourself the king of blood sports debate, you got to be ready for some blood sports personal attacks. That's all I'm going to say.
Especially when you go out at like 2 and say, okay, personal attacks against the person in front of me, that's okay. And personal attacks against people who are not there, not okay. I mean, I can kind of accept that rule, but you can't really react the way that he did when that happened. Like,
you can. You're just going to get made fun of. And what I would say too is that
logically you can.
They had very early in the conversation. I did skip around because they were talking about the military for like 45 minutes, and I just did not care about either one of their perspectives. But the early in the debate, they were talking about COVID. And so they were trying to like nail down their meta ethical framework. And so Lefty Charlie basically said like, oh, well, I'm feminist because I believe that maximal human freedom and maximal human choice is a good thing. And then this is kind of like, in my mind, it's equivocation going back to earlier in the conversation. Andrew Wilson was like, oh, you're for maximal human freedom. How do you feel about the COVID-19 lockdowns? And I was like, hold on, because this is something that the right wing cannot get they can't get the narrative straight. Because on one hand, COVID-19 was a biological weapon released by China as boomer remover in order to reduce the global population so that the oligarchs of the world could rule a decreased population through fear, lockdowns, bioweapons, et cetera, et cetera. That's one narrative. The second
one
narrative
but it was also an ineffective bioweapon that was no big deal.
It was ineffective. It didn't do anything. It had a 0.03 or it had a 0.3% fatality rate, which, by the way, a 0.3% fatality rate with mass vaccination and with lockdowns, resulting in 1.1 million Americans dead. This is undeniable. In 2021, in 2022, there were 1.1 million excess deaths related to COVID. And so which one is it? And if we go with, actually like it's 0.3% lethal, well, hold on. We launched the war on terror based off of 3,000 dead in New York and like $2 billion worth of damage. What would you do to save 1.1 million American lives? And so there's another contradiction there. But
it's easier if you just say those are all fentanyl deaths, or if you just say it's
fentanyl deaths.
it's the vaccine. I mean, you can
which is why we need to bomb random civilian ships in the Caribbean, is because 1.1 million Americans were wiped out by fentanyl in 2021 and 2022.
Yeah, I love it when they're like, we just saved 300 million lives, because that's the amount of death that could occur.
I hope that was a misspeak. But I also think that somebody like calculated it out. They were like, what if this much fentanyl was done by this many people? They do, yeah. And they were like, that would mean 300 million people. They're like, damn, we just saved the entire country from fentanyl.
They're like, this amount of fentanyl could have killed 300 million people. I'm like, shit. Do you guys like ever
like, damn, that's
know
a big
the population
number.
of America? And
let's say that at a press conference.
No, it's fucking wild. That the inclination, I think, of some of these, I don't know if I want to say unifiers, or some people who straddle multiple worlds in conservative circles, is to find some kind of like, to chart a course through some of these conspiracy theories. And it rears its head both in the context that you're talking about, where they try to make sense of the fact that it's no big deal in the COVID context, but also that it's a pandemic, or that the vaccines are very, very dangerous. And so they find a way to unify those theories. Similar kind of dynamic, I don't know if it's exactly the same, in these fence sitters when it comes to the Nick Fuentes MAGA war right now, where you have people who are trying to, on the Epstein stuff, and also on the greater like Fuentes identity crisis of MAGA, who are trying to chart a way that makes sense of Trump policies, Trump statements, the fervor that they're seeing among the Groypers, and to find a way to reconcile concepts that seem to be at odds and with each other. And as someone who is, I guess, a former member of these, on the losing side of one of these identity crises, talk me through that. And you can reference Wilson and stuff, but talk to me about these different competing ideas in conservative circles that seem contradictory, and how the right is responding.
Yeah, so if I had to stat this out, I would say that the right wing and the left wing actually have parallel problems, but the demographic sizes are different. And so what I would say is, if you're actually supposed to, if you look at stats from polling before Trump seized power for Trump 2, you got 55% of the Republican Party who picks Trump as a first choice. They want Trump. Okay, so that's 55% of the party right there
in the primary. You're saying,
yes,
and a lot of that is after he clinches effectively the nomination, and so it's a fait accompli at that point. So that might be even overestimated initially, because there was a significant amount of opposition, and a lot of the fact that Trump won. Yes, he received the plurality, but for those first primary contests, he was not receiving majorities. They were winner take all states. and the majority of Republicans were voting for someone else.
But it seems like since that time, what's happened is a lot of people have come up with contrarian reasoning for why it's okay to support Trump.
Yeah.
Deep state, Biden, Hunter corruption, crime family, whatever. Come up with a narrative that sticks, but somehow isn't hypocritical. Almost all of these narratives are hypocritical. But they'll come up with some kind of contrarian narrative. And then as a result, 80%, 90% of the Republican Party will support Trump, even if he isn't the first choice. So that's like the demographics, 55. And then I would say another 35 to 40% are people who are reluctant Trump voters, but they're still Trump voters. Then what I would say is amongst the Trump base, there's probably, I would say 5% to 10% of the population, oftentimes young people, who are viewing Trump as a vehicle to further right-wing ideas. And you could go back to Richard Spencer saying like, oh, we thought that Trump was our guy. We thought that he was dog whistling to us. We thought that he was going to go further than he actually did during Trump's first administration. You can go back to Nick Fuentes. He'll say similar things. And then also Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon's a fucking extremist, dude. There's no two ways about it. Steve Bannon is a legitimate, like, neo-monarchical, neo-fascist extremist.
Yep.
And so there's dissident right-wing people who I would say probably are 5 to 10% of the Republican coalition, I suppose. But the problem is that the MAGA Trump to me is a populist. Whoever he talked to last that he thought it was a good idea, that's what he's going to say. And so if he talks to the normie cons and the neoconservatives and the Zionist conservatives, then he's going to say pro-Israel, pro-free market stuff. But if he talks to the protectionists and the national conservatives, which is a different voting bloc, which has become more powerful, or if he talks to distant right-wing people, which J.D. Vance, weirdly enough, is a fan of distant right-wing philosophy. He's an unironic fan of Curtis Yarvin. He's an unironic fan of like Peter Thiel, neo-techno-feudalism.
Those guys are opposed to Fuentes. Fuentes views them as compromised by world Jewry, it seems. And before we go on to these groups, this is really interesting analysis, and thank you for it. I want to stop because you said that Trump is actually a populist, and then you went on to say like he just listens to the last person he hears, and I don't think that either of those two things are necessarily at odds with each other. But I think just what you mean by he's a populist is that's his affect. It's how he portrays himself, but it's not connected to necessary policy. I mean, he's acting in many senses like a neocon in this kind of interventionist style that is going on. He is, appealing to elites with regard to a lot of his policies on taxes, and not protecting Medicaid, which is something that like some populist right-wing people are trying to fight for. And so, instituting some of these corrupt bargains with literal like tech oligarchs and other crypto people, as well as traditional media types, etc. So when Cenk says Trump's a fake populist, you roll your eyes because Cenk from Young Turks has this kind of like totalizing view of the establishment versus populism. But in some sense, isn't he correct, at least on the policy side? And when you say that Trump's a populist, are you referring just merely to his presentation and what he paints himself as opposed to the policy? And then we'll get to the groups.
Yeah, so I think it's a mix. And then my chat is saying that you're a little low. So if you could speak into the mic a little bit more, that would be great. And then chat, I'll keep an eye out here for your guys' feedback on audio. But I think it is a little bit of a mix. I think it's easy to differentiate between. We both agree that he has populist rhetoric, right? That's like almost without saying, we confirm that. When it comes to policy, I think that economic protectionism is oftentimes a populist thing. And so I think the tariffs, even though it screws over the working class, I do think that is a populist policy.
Oh, sure. I think that the tariffs, I was talking about the tax cuts and the neocon.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's trying to make everybody happy all at the same time. Right, and then that's where I guess I don't see necessarily a contradiction between trying to appeal to the masses and trying to also satisfy whoever he talked to last that made him happy. And I think that's why he's incoherent. I think that's why he's a dog chasing cars. And I think his feedback mechanism, oftentimes, I mean, we'll see this on social media where he'll start losing a battle on social media and then he'll change course. Just as an example that has happened within the past week is the Epstein files were,
that was a particularly that's like a
he
fake.
lost the Epstein fight. He lost the Epstein fight, and now he's reversing course. But of course, what I'm scared of, and
he's going to fight.
What
all
I'm
the way.
scared of, what I'm scared of is, and by the way, I don't put it past him to do this. I just wonder if it's too smart, even for Trump, is to say, "Oh well, we're launching anti-Democrat Epstein investigations. Therefore, you can have all of these files that are not compromising to me."
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing.
These ones need to stay sealed because they're part of the Democrat investigation.
As soon as that Truth Social came out, that's the first thing I said. The minute I'm like, that's exactly what he's doing, and I think that is a non-trivial argument that he'll be correct on that as a legal matter, just because of the ideology behind Trump United States and I guess the doctrine there. I hope that he doesn't win. I don't think it's a necessary conclusion based on the law that it compels that answer as a legal matter, but I do think it's a non-trivial argument, especially when the court doesn't seem to be wanting to take bad faith or sham motive into consideration on what are obviously sham investigations after Trump and Pam said, hey, nothing to see here, folks, investigation's over. And now all of a sudden, new investigations after you said it's a hoax made by Obama. And so now you're going to investigate Bill Clinton. It's just ridiculous. But so I hear you there. But even if I don't grant that it's a real full reversal, he has had real reversals, and one of those is really on tariffs too, where he's painting the reversal of the tariff also as a popular that he implemented himself on like beef or some shit as a populist move.
KMS so hard,
yeah.
Besant or whatever. Which weirdly enough, I heard Destiny say that he liked Besant for some reason. I have no idea what the context for that clip was, but Besant, the trade secretary, I don't even know his title, but he goes on to
Treasury, bro.
Yeah, and he's like, hey guys, I have good news. We're going to reverse all the tariffs for things that we don't grow in the United States. And I'm like, people have been screaming about that for 6 months, you stupid.
Well, the reason why I think Stephen probably likes Besant over Lutnick is because Besant is more tariff skeptical, even though he has to put on the line of these tariffs are great. We are all on board with the tariffs. We just know from reporting that he's more skeptical of the tariffs and more aligned with.
I can't believe the guy wakes up every single day. He's like, willingly for my paycheck, I will eat the biggest shit sandwich every single day, which is trying to make Trump's economic policy make sense. But I don't want to lose the narrative through line because we were talking about
the different groups,
how the far right or dissident right has kind of infected the Republican narrative and whether or not that's a real threat that's worthy of contention.
Yeah, one last point on Trump, because I think that he, by being so amorphous and being so ideologically malleable, if there's any ideology, the through line there is just praise, like a praise kink or something, or like ego. But by being malleable and failing to define himself from an ideological perspective, really, he's opened the floodgates for everyone to take up the mantle of Trumpism and to define and say, this is true MAGA, and everyone can kind of have a coherent argument behind them. So like you hear Ben Shapiro talk about what Trumpism is, and it makes sense, like the way he tells the story. And you hear Nick try to sell what the promise was of America First, and that kind of makes sense from that through line. I think Bannon also, he runs in some of these circles. He's taken a more kind of on the fence position there, but I think similarly, a lot of these people are able to tell compelling stories. Vivek is able to tell a compelling story there. Trump was always in favor of immigration, just legally. Trump has always been in favor of...
it's a political Rorschach test.
Right. So all of these people can make plausible arguments given the malleability of Trump. And who wins out here, I think, is going to be interesting because Trump is a lame duck. He's old. And with respect to the left comparison you made there, I thought it was kind of astute in that the numbers might be different, but kind of the arguments are similar, which is the energy is with these young socialist types, right? The energies are with these people. And regardless of what you think about that with respect to the left, that's certainly true, I feel like, of the online Groyper movement. And I've been saying this, and I think you've been seeing this, and you've been saying, I don't think this is new to you at all. I think you've been very conscious of this, and I certainly have been, the energy seems to be, at least with the youth movement, on this kind of like supposed truth-telling, Groyperism, nativism. So talk me through it.
It's so that brutal observation. So what's happened is there's a dissident right wing, and I think that they have a more sexy allure, because if you go to like the mainstream academic conservative right wing, you got to read books, right? And you got to study history, and you got to know this, and you got to know that. Whereas you could just go on to Nick Fuentes' show, and he's just going to say, hey, the reason why the inner cities are dangerous is because of black people, and black people suck, and XYZ ABC. The reason why America has a degrading position internationally is because of Jews and international Jewry. And that's why we have mass immigration and we have all our economic foibles. The reason why our, going to the grocery store sucks is because we have all these Hispanics and these Indians who are mass immigrating to the United States, and they're browning it, and they're trying to destroy the white race. And so it's like it's a charismatic and funny guy who's pretty smart and also actually has decent narrativization of historical facts, but he's giving you like a very simplistic narrative for what's going on.
Oh yeah, he sells you it in a paragraph, and that I think is one of Trump's, when he was younger, he was able to do that very effectively to a certain class of people. The difference here is that I truly believe Fuentes is ideological, and I truly think that even though I think sometimes he's actively deceiving and lying, I think he's sincere about the views he holds. In a way, I don't want to compare him to Mamdani in any other respect, but to say, like, I think Mamdani is sincere in that sense. And that's the only sense in which I'm comparing it, is that I think that Mamdani is a true
he's earnest. So is, he thinks that if I had to say this, and by the way, I'd be happy to be corrected by any Groypers in chat, but I think he's sincere in his Christian nationalism. And a differentiation that I've made is, so whenever somebody says the word nation, I'm synonymizing that with the word people. When somebody uses the word state, I'm synonymizing that with government. And so as a result, these terms that we kind of associate with each other, when you hear Christian nationalist, what I think Nick Fuentes genuinely wants to do is he wants to wake up everybody to racial tribal consciousness. Right, yeah. He wants to wake up everybody to religious consciousness. And then he wants white Christians and maybe some allies who are down with the cause. Like if you're like a black nationalist Christian, like you want to segregate and live in your own black commune or whatever, you can be a Groyper too. And same thing with Hispanics. But we're going to live in separate ethno-religious enclaves. But anyways, so once you wake these people up to religious and race consciousness, then you can get a really powerful political bloc of white Christians who advocate for their interests tribally within the American construct. And then within the American construct, they're post-constitutional. They don't give a shit about the Constitution. Yeah, no. They think the Constitution was written by a bunch of like libertine, wine-sipping, anti-Jesus, anti-religion douchebags. And so as a result, like the Constitution can be thrown out. We don't need the Constitution. We'll obey it insofar as is legally necessary.
Yeah, to the extent that it serves them. Society. Yeah, to the extent like the notions of free speech, it serves them when they're on the outs. And there are aspects of the framing and founding of the country that they'll cling to, particularly like the history of Christianity, in the sense of a lot of the framers and a lot of the people coming over the country being Christians. I'm sure they'll jettison the anti-Catholic aspect of the founding of the country, and it's puritanical and Anglican style to it, and more, at least the Catholic iteration of this. Although I don't really see. I think you're correct. It's a kind of more generic Christian nationalism. It isn't as focused on the Catholic aspect to it, and it's willing to break bread with different sorts of Christians. One thing I'll say is, I think Fuentes is keenly aware of power and in the bigger picture in a way that I think a lot of commentators aren't. And this is not to praise him. I think it's just whatever he's trying to sell, he is taking a step back to look at the broader set of considerations and context in a way that sometimes I feel like a lot of commentators get lost in the weeds of the particulars of this argument. He'll take a step back and ask, why is this conversation even happening? Why is this even occurring in the first place? As opposed to having the conversation itself. Now, for me, Fuentes taking control of the party would be a worst case scenario for this country, even though I think electorally it would benefit Democrats in the short to medium term if more Groypers clung on to power. I just don't trust this country enough for them not to give this guy reins of power or some of his followers. And so given that I think it's a worst case scenario, talk to me more about your fears, talk to me more about this ideology, this group. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so even having a conversation recently, I just went on Wick TV this past week, and I had libertarians, I had Lactoid, and I had Ash of Creativity, who they weren't suckered in, they weren't Groypers, but they were suckered into a romantic vision of Nick Fuentes, where they were like, well, I don't agree with 80% of what he said, but I'm happy that I listened to the interview because I really feel like I have a better understanding of who he is. And what was so frustrating to me in that conversation is when we were discussing who Nick Fuentes was, they were regurgitating all of the sanitized talking points. They weren't talking about Holocaust denial, Holocaust revision. They weren't talking about disempowering American Jewry from political power, which is an often stated goal of his. It's very vague, but I have a feeling it's going to involve some degree of violence. Don't talk about like resegregation, none of that shit. They spoke of it exclusively within the sanitized terms that Nick Fuentes did. And so what I'm worried about, I do think Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are overestimating their position within the right as it currently stands, where they're probably only representative of a few percentage points of the right wing. However, I do think that they are Trojan horsing terrible ideas into the right wing. And I'm hearing it because of Tucker Carlson, because I think he's not even a useful idiot. He's like a useful vehicle. He's a useful vehicle of bad ideas. I hear the sanitized talking points being regurgitated and popularized.
Yeah, it like, I think you're correct about the extent to which those views are representative of the broader Republican right, though I do think there's a lot of reprehensible views among a lot of the ideological right in this country. But I do think it's a minority. The thing is, like, Fuentes is totally conscious of that. Totally conscious of that in a way that, but the thing is, he doesn't need to convince 40% of the country. He just needs to convince the people who are writing policy memos. He just needs to convince the people who are at the heads of the apparatus that Trump has constructed. And they're so conscious of that. Like, they view Trump as a wrecking ball to destroy aspects of the old guard and to wrest control and to basically do the little finger of introducing chaos. And in that chaos, as long as they position themselves in, for example, the Young Republicans group, among the people who are having a seat at the table in terms of who they're going to nominate for different political positions, including, threatening to withhold their vote. You see J.D. Vance and Trump tiptoeing. They're not forcefully condemning Fuentes. And that is power. And though I think, don't count your chickens before you're hatched, I don't think it's like a sure thing that Fuentes is going to, or his type, are going to control the Republicans going forward. The fact that I'm seeing such caginess among Trump, J.D. Vance, and some members, they're waiting to see which way the wind blows. And they're not above making a deal with them. And that is real power.
Confidence is infectious.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that is, part of their propaganda is Groyperism, or the America First is inevitable. Right? It's like the Borg, like resistance is futile. And so like the whole point is they're trying to convince you of their ideological purity and supremacy. That way you become so attracted to their narrative that even if you don't agree with their narrative fully, you will sell out to it because you see like you mentioned, the momentum. You'll see the political momentum with them. And so one of the things that I think needs to be pointed out was P.F. Young, of all people, said this, and I agree with him. Wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric are giving us fertile ground in which radicalism is attractive. And so whether you're talking about like radical leftism or radical right wing, there are hundreds of thousands or millions of young men and women who who are looking for an ideology that, advocates for them effectively within this like really chaotic landscape. And so what I see doomsday prophets. And I think Nick Fuentes is a particularly effective doomsday prophet. And I think that he's going to punch well above his weight. And so when you have JD Vance saying that he's a post-liberal, when you have him quoting Curtis Yarvin, when you have him, basically being in the pocket of Peter Thiel and being groomed by Peter Thiel, who's a techno-feudalist. I know that he beefs with the Groypers and beefs with the Christian nationalists. But when you have them considering these like post-liberal, anti-constitutional ideas, I'm not going to be surprised if Zionist conservatism and constitutional conservatism, I'm not going to be surprised if those are such historical parts of the right that they'll never fully be able to dissolve that construct of conservatism. But like you said, they might have this like puritanical core that climbs to the top in positions of power, similar to who's that dickhead? Is it Stephen Miller?
Yeah. Well, it's one dickhead. He's a dickhead,
yeah,
sure.
Well, but just imagine effectively like a JD Vance administration, but a Groyper or Groyper light dissident right-wing philosopher is in Stephen Miller's position. And that's kind of the future of the right that I'm envisioning that Groypers would celebrate.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. One thing that really bothers me is when you see a bunch of comments. I see this sometimes in my comments or in my chat, which are like, they're just virgins in their basement, or they're this or that. Like, the worst thing you could do at this time, and I felt this with Trump back in the day, is underestimate your enemy. Like, seriously. I don't know how many times America needs to learn this lesson, but underestimating the power of the opposition and who your political enemy is a recipe for disaster. You can't do that. These Groypers and Nick is on the ascendancy, and the amount of the growth is scary. And so you have to start taking these people deadly serious. It is incredibly concerning because I don't see another compelling vision on offer currently for the youth. Even Charlie Kirk, while he was alive, I mean, it was, for me, obvious that they were taking inspiration from a lot of the talking points of Fuentes and manufacturing them, reselling them to try to make them consistent and coherent with what Trump was doing and what, Charlie Kirk's previous positions were. But they're not gonna settle for an unalloyed version of Groyperism or of, what they consider to be an authentic Christian nationalist vision. And if there's no competing vision on offer, one that speaks to the kind of populist sentiment that Trump has created, whether, genuinely or just by the nature of his presentation, I don't really see who else could take that mantle. Even Fuentes now is like making demands of JD Vance, has the ear of Tucker Carlson, and is able to create a national conversation. That is very insane amount of power, an incredible amount of power, such that the Republicans were more concerned about this inner conflict than the elections that were taking place. Do not underestimate it. And if the Republicans don't have anything else on offer but platitudes and fence sitting and just trust the plan Republicans, the Groypers are going to win.
This is a part of my failure as well, I think. And it's something that I'm thinking about very seriously, and this conversation is helping me to crystallize it. So one of my, I think, rhetorical and political faults is that I'm not offering a compelling vision to the youth. Okay?
Me neither.
Yeah. Well, what I'm offering is long, technocratic, historically informed explanations of the status quo.
You and me
along both. Along with justifications of why these systems, even though they're like complex and they're kind of unwieldy and they're not perfect, why they're still incredibly important for furthering our civilization. And that's not sexy. That's not fun, you know. And so there's a degree to which, like, I I think that the truth isn't as sexy and isn't as fun, but I think you got to make the truth like sexy and fun. And what I think what I would hope is that the disillusionment with Trump, the disillusionment with these momentous political movements, the disillusionment with Nick himself, you might be able to pry people away. And what I mean by that is, let's say that I think we're both right to be skeptical that Trump might use the current investigations into the Democrats in order to seal the stuff that's damning of him and then release what's necessary in order to placate Congress.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be this argument between people like me who are like, no. We can obviously tell that Trump covered up all his own bullshit using this as a pretext. And then the Republicans are going to be like, oh, you're just saying that because you want to sweep for the Democrats. And then that's how he's going to shift the narrative, at least until he's out of office. So that's going to be frustrating.
This won't end his presidency. Like, people who are saying that, like, I just, you haven't been watching this, and he'll be able to put up a non-trivial legal argument in court. And yeah, so this is not going to tank his presidency.
I would just want to damage him before the midterms and then have the midterms mute his presidency.
Right, but they're not going to remove him from office. He's not going to be able to, like, it's not going to be like he's going to be thrown in jail, or he's going to have to, like, this is going to be a slow death, but and he's going to finish out his term unless he dies in office. And it's just an indication, I think, of the fault lines here. And the fact that you can sense it. There's blood in the water. And Trump is making the wrong strategic moves, going after Marjorie Taylor Greene, going after Thomas Massie, because if they survive, and I've made this point on my Twitter, on my X feed, if they survive, then his status as a kingmaker is seriously in jeopardy, seriously undermining the perception of power, as you mentioned before. Yeah, but you're praying for it now, but who's going to be left? The perception of power. I mean, would you rather have Trump as kingmaker, where he's making, like, picking Dr. Oz, or would you rather have Fuentes being the kingmaker in terms of who they nominate as America First candidates? That's the problem, is that there's a vacuum here. Just real quick, Josiah with the super chat. Thank you so much for $20. Ask Connor how many GEOMs from 40K it would take to defeat Sheev Palpatine, 3 or 4, and then answer.
How do you spell?
GEOMS from 40K. Geomes?
God Emperors of Mankind.
Oh.
Well, once again, hold on. I'm going to entertain this absurd statement from Josiah. Okay, I'm going to entertain it. The God Emperor of Mankind eats 1,000 psychers a day, and the psychic powers of those psychers are equivalent to Sidious. Sidious isn't even the coolest Sith. There was the Sith Emperor. I forget his original name, but I could look it up. There was a guy,
Darth Bane.
No. Bane is a weak player too. There was the Sith Emperor. He invited, after a war with the Jedi, he invited all of the high-level Sith to a planet, and then he used a psychic death weapon to destroy the planet and consume all of the psychic energy of that planet. And then he became like a Force demigod who was capable of possessing and running multiple bodies at the same time. Sheev Palpatine is fucking nothing. Sheev Palpatine's a pussy.
Anyway, thanks for distracting us, Josiah. We were talking about the party. I had just said that the perception, to your point, where you were like, momentum is infectious, victory is infectious, that defeat and failure also have
victory's on the way out. Momentum is with them, victory is not. And what I mean by that is, they tied their destruction of the establishment, which Trump, let's face it, he did a decent job of being a bull in a china shop.
Oh, sure.
They tied.
But the old guard had a seat at the table, though, to be clear. He dethroned the Republican old guard, but he brought them back just as the head. Like, it's almost like the shogun in Japan or something. Like, they take over and whatever, right? But, like, we still need our keys to power. We're still going to use them. We're still going to use, in the first term, Paul Ryan. We're still going to use the RNC, and we're going to slowly embed ourselves. But yes, he absolutely was a bull in the china shop. Go ahead.
But that's where I think it's going to take people with balls. Just as an example, I heard the Democratic Congress member from Arizona get sworn in. I forget her name.
Grijalva.
But she said She was like, it is time that this body starts acting as a co-equal branch of government and stop bending the knee to the executive. And I was like, damn. And like, people were applauding and all that kind of stuff. And so it's going to take people like that. And the reason why it's going to take people like that is because this power, I'll cut through the parable, but there's a parable from Game of Thrones that I love where power is where people believe it resides. And so right now, vast swaths of the population believe that power resides with Donald Trump. Therefore, he's quite a powerful figure. Hundreds of thousands or millions of young men believe that Nick Fuentes' message is one that's worth listening to and worth repeating. And the reason why Tucker Carlson and the old guard of conservative media are paying attention to Fuentes at all, it's not because they actually necessarily like Fuentes' ideas. It's because they know that he has the ear of hundreds of thousands or millions of disaffected young men. And so the whole point is it's going to take stones from people at the bottom, not to just relent to the far left or the far right, but to actually say, no, fuck you, here's why you're wrong, and make a compelling argument to the youth. Now, the problem is the solutions to wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric, that's going to take creativity. That's going to take intelligence. That's going to take balls. That's going to take money. And it also seems like the old guard, in reference to mixed economy American capitalism, they don't seem to want to tackle these problems head on because they're so complex that you could spend trillions of dollars trying to fix these problems, and there's no guarantee that you would even make a dent in them. And I think that's why they're scared of it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that there are additional challenges for the Groypers and Fuentes that shouldn't. This war is not done. This civil war and what's going to happen. Yes, some people are trying to be like the first shakers and movers to show that they're open because they don't want to be left behind, because it sucks to be left behind. They had the experience of, Glenn Beck had that experience. Megyn Kelly had that experience.
I'm having that experience.
Connor had that experience. Being left behind in this environment, especially if your job is to be a political pundit, not good. Remember, Tucker Carlson used to be fucking Bush, apologia on Fox constantly wearing a bow tie. So, I mean, this guy, he might have some principles about him. He might have some ideology through line there, but he's a cunning political actor. He's a thoughtful, deceptive guy. And I think Fuentes is thoughtful as well. Here's where I think the challenges for the Groypers will be. First is some of these institutions were more malleable to Trump in that he really was working with a status quo that was willing to work, that was willing to deal with him. Even the Federalist Society, the courts, these are institutions that Trump didn't really buck from the conservative standpoint, and he was willing to play ball with a lot of these institutional actors, including, by the way, the Bezoses of the world, these tech oligarchs, Elon, right? So even though he had that populist rhetoric about him, he was connected and still is connected to an institutional legacy which keeps the Republicans in power. Now, Groypers are slowly embedding themselves into these different ladders, but they're going to, I think, get more pushback from these institutions than Trump got, because Trump was willing to play ball, I think, in some of these areas, so long as they paid fealty, almost like a king. What Fuentes has on offer, I think, is a more radical undermining of the status quo there, and he's ideologically committed to it in a way that Trump isn't. And the second is women. Women are a big barrier for the Groypers, and they currently have power in this country, whether you like it or not. With their, from their perspective, they don't even think they should be able to vote, right? But women do, in fact, have power. And though the gender divide has never been greater now than it is, Groyperism is going to push more women away. I don't think this is a message that sells well to women or young women. And so the Democrats can't, I think, lose women. That's a message I think that Democrats need to take home, is the importance of women, because the Groyper message is going to put them off, and there's no easy way for them to get around that. We need to make inroads with men, but we need to make sure that we're keeping women around. And so those are two big challenges, I think, for Groypers, is to find a way to sell this to women.
I was going to say, one of the really interesting things about like learning history and philosophy is realizing how many of these problems are ancient, like 3,000 years old, 2,500 years old. And one of the really interesting things was this conversation. I think it was in like Xenophon or something like that. He wrote about a dinner party that Socrates went to. And there was this like great man, basically like the proto-Groiper. And he was saying like, he was using force doctrine. You know how Andrew Wilson loves force doctrine? Mm-hmm. So he was talking about force doctrine 2,500 years ago. And he was like, it's such bullshit that in Athens, we let all these like weak people vote who, you know, they don't back the great men of society. They tax the businessman too much. You know, they don't back the military generals the way they need to. You know, it's only because the strong allow themselves to be subsumed by the weak that the weak are able to rule. And so Socrates points out, well, hey, isn't democracy, voting? Now, of course, like it was only men and it was only, Greek citizens of a certain status and all that kind of stuff. But he was saying like all these weak people through whom that you say that political power is invested that is restraining your own power. Is that not in and of itself a demonstration of power politics where the weak have coalesced their political power in order to restrain the supposed strong?
Right, and so the elderly in America, physically more feeble, but they vote more and they coalesce their interests, and they have groups that that support them, and
they can vote and they command wealth and influence.
Yeah,
and that's that was another thing that you just kicked another thing loose in my brain. In the 1960s, I was watching this interview of this guy who hated Richard Nixon, and they were talking about the political coalition that they were trying to build in order to take out Nixon and the reforms that they thought were necessary in order to build a competing political machine to Nixon. And a lady who was an operative in DC, probably, dead now for a long time, probably dead for 80 years. She looked this political operative in the eye and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You think that DC is stagnant? You think that we're old? You think that we don't understand anything? We're not just going to give you power. You have to take it." And so that's like another thing too, where I think the reason why we kind of promote sociopaths up to the upper echelons of our society is because those are the people who have balls to take power. And so there has to be a lesson in that with how do you take power, but remain virtuous and remain focused on the needs of the American people. And balancing that many priorities is difficult to say the least.
Super, super difficult. One that's going to be necessary for Democrats, I think, to do, because I think whatever comes after Trump, people have this like, I think, even though they might not say it, but there's this kind of like, I can't wait till Trump's over. Only 3 more years. Oh, he's having a fucking illness thing, and then we can breathe. No, guys, like we are in a different era now. You're not ever gonna be breathing completely free again, and I expect what comes after Trump is going to be worse for the country from the Republicans. And that's why it's going to be even more.
I hope not.
I think it will be. I really do. I hope that they won't win. I mean, that'll be the kicker. I hope that Democrats will be able to win in commanding majorities and, like you're kind of referencing, manage these interests and actually deliver. They need to deliver, because if I'm right, whatever comes after Trump, which I think will be more provincial, more nationalistic and ethnic centric. I don't forget the term you used, kind of in-group, whatever the term you used.
I might have just used nationalism because nationalism refers to the people.
Yeah, but here it's more particular than that. It's the white Christian majority.
I might have used ethno-religious, and the reason why I use ethno-religious as a hybrid term is because of ethnicity, right? Like oftentimes we're talking about like descent from specific nations. But then in America, that doesn't always make sense because Irish people ally with English people, even though they're historical rivals, right? Yeah. Like ethnicity doesn't make as much sense in the American context. So I use ethno-religious as like a hybrid term because Christians, like different kinds of whites may or may not work with each other, but they also might prefer the Christian alliance. And then different kinds of whites will have increasing and decreasing preference for Hispanics and whether or not they're part of the alliance. And so I hybridize those terms.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that kind of vision will be electorally more negative for Republicans, no doubt. But if they're the other party and if Democrats fuck up, it opens the door to that. I think that's very dangerous. One of the things that I think I'm happy about with respect to Trump is he's very predictable. And this whole thing about, oh, now I'm in favor of releasing Epstein files. It's a classic Trump. And, classic say that you want something, but plan the legal fight. I bet they've already have the starting briefs being prepared in anticipation for it. It's so nonsensical, the Epstein stuff, because the notion that he would support passing a law to force him to do the thing that he's already allowed to do, even in itself, is fucking ridiculous. But you can always predict kind of Trump's moves in that sense. I feel like more devious are people like Russ Vought, people who are movers and shakers and that have more kind of cunning to them. Trump has a certain kind of cunning and a certain kind of instinct.
Oh, he does. The Atlantic City thing I use as an example almost all the time, because I think it's really easy to dismiss Trump as stupid and unintelligent. And I do agree. I actually do think that he's dumb and unintelligent, but he is cunning.
Yeah.
And
but he's not a long-term planner, I feel like. I don't think he's not a planner. He's got a cunning, he's got an instinct, a kind of intuition, but I don't think he's planning in the way like Fuentes is literally planning. He's like, don't out yourself as a groyper if you're in these tracks. Let yourself get into these different areas and just go about your normal day. That is something that Trump's ego couldn't stomach, and he doesn't have the patience for. And so I'm more scared of a patient planning autocrat fucking fascist than I am of Trump, even though I'm very scared.
I just think that they overplay their hand. And just as an example, I have a community member named Justin. He's a groyper, and he talks about banning pornography. And he talks about banning, what is it? Banning,
their policies. Yeah, their policies aren't going to be able to sell as much as Trump's more vagaries.
But even right there, if you have, let's say that you have Nick Fuentes, the extremist, and he's doing his Rush Limbaugh shock jock daily show, and he's like, oh, these whores, they need to get back in the kitchen. We need to ban contraception. We need to ban pornography. Well, obviously what's going to happen is any groyper operative who's a part of the Republican establishment, they're not actually going to probably push for that because they know it's going to be legislative suicide, but they'll probably take that a little bit into their zeitgeist, into their consciousness. And so as a result, they'll push to do things like banning Plan B, right? Or making required age verification for 18 for you to be able to buy condoms. They're going to chip away at the extreme. They're going to chip away legislatively at the extreme position that Nick Fuentes stakes out. But I think that even that chipping away of those freedoms, especially if you have a polarizing Rush Limbaugh style figure, I think it's going to turn off vast swaths of the populace. Because just as an example, Justin was talking in my chat about how we need to ban contraception in order to increase the birth rate of the United States of America for the national population. I checked out polling on contraception. 80% of the American public supports enshrining into law the right to contraception.
Yeah.
So 4-1, they have the opposite political instincts of the groyper movement. And so that's where I think the groypers will overplay their hands.
I think a lot of them are serious about their political views there, but I don't think that is limited just to the greater population. What you're saying, I think your point is even more expansive than that. And this is the way in which I'm suggesting it. Even though the groypers' ideology is segmented and premised on creating additional barriers, right, and additional distinctions, right. Physical barriers in the sense of the borders, race barriers in the sense and distinctions based on their ideology, distinctions in terms of morality and women and men and their roles. So their ideology is very much steeped in certain aspects of tradition, but certainly in terms of like building restrictions, additional restrictions. That is all fine and good, but their rise to prominence almost is as a result of lowering walls and restrictions, right? Lowering our a sense of decency and our like whatever our this sensitivity we have to certain words and certain kinds of comedy and destigmatizing things and making it more accessible, the kinds of wild opinions that can exist, and being more fun and having more freedom in that sense and being more wild. And so there's a kind of part of the rise to me, and I think this might be a challenge. I'm not saying it's insurmountable for the Groypers to overcome, is the inherent like joyful exuberance at play in the feeling of Nick's rise that is seemingly at odds with the structures they want to put in place in society. I'm not saying that those are insurmountable, but I do think that they'll get more pushback on that stuff than
well,
Trump
that's actually why I kind of want to, I call my community the coalition of girl hottists, because actually just through liberal debate or whatever, probably 60% of my audience are pissed off liberals who hate leftists, and 40% of my audience are like libertarians or conservatives who hate Trump. But I think that there's an opportunity. I'm a statist. I'm not a libertarian, so I'm not pure enough for the libertarians.
Oh, we know.
But what's that?
Well, we know you're a statist. Go ahead.
Well, right. Okay. So I'm not pure enough for them. But I do think that there's an opportunity for like a cultural alliance between conservatarians, libertarians, and liberals in order to take back some of that exuberance. Because if you look at the 2010s, maybe you don't feel this is true, but the narrative, at least the dominant narrative, was that the left wing were the moral busybodies, policing speech, trying to get you to buy into pseudo-religious orthodoxy of progressivism and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at the 20s, and if you look at the Groypers, and if you look at the Trump movement, it seems like Trump was a wrecking ball, and the conservatarians and the libertarians went along with it. But it seems like increasingly the authoritarian narrative is coming out. And so as a result, the right wing is increasingly becoming authoritarian, dogmatic, pseudo-religious, all that kind of crap.
Enforcing these kinds of these dogmas and restrictions where they're kind of lashing out themselves in enforcing these kinds of standards and trying to police themselves in ways in which they were, when they were out of power, trying to say everyone should be like, accepted at the table. That is a very good point, Connor.
Well, I think there's opportunity there. And I think the opportunity is effectively saying, like, on the left wing, you can be a liberal, bro. Like you can be a liberal. You can be a mixed economy capitalist. You can care about minorities. You can just be like a sane, normal person who works a job and pays your bills and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to be a revolutionary leftist. And then on the right wing, you got to be like, hey, you don't have to be like this moral busybody. As an example of one of the stories that I think is really funny is Nick had a roommate and best friend named Jaden for a long time. And Jaden started dating a girl and probably having premarital sex.
Yeah.
And so when Jaden and him started having increasingly awkward interactions and eventually Jaden moved out, well, Nick was texting some of his subordinates that he had taken a black light and inspected Jaden's room after he had left to see if he could find sex stains from premarital sex so he could use that as political leverage against Jaden. And for me, it's like, listen, I understand you want to be Christian. I understand you want to find your trad wife. Maybe busting out a black light in order to politically blackmail your friend with, sex stains, maybe that's a little far. I think there's political hay to be made there.
Yeah. The thing I'm a little bit worried about additionally, though, is Trumpism without Trump is hard to imagine. Groyperism without Nick is not hard to imagine for me. It's, in a way, it feels like a social contagion that can spring up in any number of charisma. Now Nick, in his particular flavor of it, I think is, he's particularly charismatic, he's funny, that kind of stuff. But I think that the ideas that he's instilled, not that they're novel in any respect, but they're springing up. It's like we have an outbreak of it, and I think that it's more transferable than like neoconism, the traditional Republican type ideology, whatever that is at this point, and the specific kind of Trump style of the populist MAGA wing. And so I'm definitely concerned about that. There are potentials for his own human.
Sorry, real quick. I just want to give you a little bit of a silver lining and let you play with it. So JD Vance, something that Pete Buttigieg said that I actually agree with is he was asked, hey, do you think Pete Buttigieg is a fascist? And Pete Buttigieg's answer was, I think JD Vance is whatever he needs to be. And
he asked if JD Vance was a fascist, not Pete Buttigieg.
Yes. Yes. And so Pete Buttigieg's answer was that JD Vance is whatever he needs to be.
Right. Yeah.
When he needed to be a Silicon Valley Democrat, he was a Silicon Valley Democrat. When he needed to be a Never Trump Republican, he was a Never Trump Republican. When he needed to be a Trumpist Republican, he became a Trumpist Republican. And so JD Vance getting tapped as the prince who's going to succeed Trumpism, I think that he's probably going to try to ape Trump's propaganda. It is the Democrats' election to lose, in my opinion, but they could lose it. Let's be real. They've been successful at losing things recently. But JD Vance, I think, is going to be infinitely more technocratic and infinitely more receptive to power brokers within the political and industrial establishment. I think he's going to be infinitely more technocratic than Trump ever was. Now, if JD Vance was a zealot, then we would be fucked.
Yeah, but we just I mean, in some sense, I hear you, but JD, I think, is missing the charismatic, I don't know, force of nature that is Trump for people, and also Nick and some of these people on the right, like Tucker. Like it feels like he's cagey. In a way, he reminds me of Kamala. Like he's trying not to offend. Like every tweet of his is trying to find some middle way to appease. Now he's a unhinged fucking loser fascist guy, or at least is willing to support that regime. But there's a kind of nervousness that you feel that when he's answering a question, he's conscious of his audience in a way that it seems like he's being incredibly deliberative. Now, Nick does this too. Nick is very aware of what his audience is. When he's on Alex Jones and when he's on Tucker Carlson, it's very different than when he's on a show. So this is not to say that people, any politician, time and place, right, understand it. But there's a kind of deliberateness and thoughtfulness behind JD Vance, which makes you feel that inauthenticity. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm often so hard on Democratic leadership these days, is because I'm thinking about the long term. And I just don't think these Democrats have it, whatever it is. And that is a perception of authenticity. Stones. Yeah, it's a kind of je ne sais quoi that some people have it and some people don't. And I don't know that I can.
Can I tell you what it is? Because it's something that I'm deathly afraid of for myself.
Yeah.
So I went to 21st century liberalism in the 21st century. I went to this past year. I was invited by a Fukuyama, one of Francis Fukuyama's employees, and I went, and it was cool. It was cool to meet everybody. It was cool to meet a bunch of liberals and libertarians. There were actually a healthy chunk of libertarians there as well. But it was interesting to meet these people who effectively all decided that Trumpism was bad. But the problem with it, in my opinion, was that they had all gotten theirs. And what I mean by that is they were representatives of think tanks with six-figure salaries. They were former Congress members and congressional staff who had all made money in D.C. and rubbed elbows. They were all captains of industry and former business people who had retired, who just had expendable income, and as a result, wanted to be politically active. And I swear to God, 2/3 of the conference was not talking about the crisis of American democracy or talking about like how do we solve, in my opinion, again, and P.F. Young's opinion, wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, and the dissolution of the social fabric. That's not what they were interested in. They were interested in promoting liberalism in Eastern Europe and Africa. And that was probably, I would say, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it felt vibes-wise half to 2/3 of the conference, to the point that anybody under the age of 40 did not attend the panels. They went into the bars and went into the area outside in order to talk amongst each other, because we were like, these fucking boomers are lost. And so for me, when you're saying the je ne sais quoi, the thing that I don't know that is bugging me about Democratic leadership, for me, when I look at Chuck Schumer, when I look at Hakeem Jeffries, when I look at any of these people, they already got theirs. They're not hungry. They're not rising to the moment. They're not scared. And if they are scared, it's something that they can ignore when they go back to their houses at night and they're in DC rubbing elbows with their friends, making 6 or 7 figures a year. Whereas I think the young people who haven't made it financially
are ambitious.
There's a hunger and anger there.
They want it. I'm going to make 2, since you nerded out with Josiah, I'm going to make 2 nerd references. The first is to George R.R. Martin, right? Everyone who's following these books knows he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to write, and he's probably not writing right now, Wins a Winner, because he doesn't want to. And he doesn't have that hunger in him, that dog in him. The second reference I'm going to make is respect to what you were just saying about your conference. Another nerd reference. Reminds me of the first StarCraft. In the first StarCraft game, the Protoss alien race their homeworld is being invaded. And they're like having to deal with these massive odds on this swarm that's like attacking their precious homeland and homeworld. And in the middle of all that, there's this douchebag in the conclave who's like concerned with enforcing the edicts, the law against this like one guy who's trying to help them, this guy named Tassadar, and who ends up like sacrificing, well, no spoilers. He ends up doing stuff to save the, this is an old game, it's from the fucking 90s, guys, to save the planet. Or
that's all right, I'm tracking, keep going.
What's left of it. And that's what it kind of feels like. There's a lot of these like futile fights that don't matter that are being prioritized, or things that are like, who the fuck cares about that? So one example of that is like the seniority system in the Democratic Senate. When I hear people saying, oh, we must abide by the seniority system in the Senate, or when I hear someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger say, oh yes, we must adhere to like interstate gerrymandering priors that don't relate to what the fuck the rest of the country is going through, I want to pull my hair out. It's like, you guys are fighting for things that in the moment don't matter. Like the house is burning down and you're worried about like that, like someone spilled a drink on the carpet. And that drives
use
me
a coaster.
Yeah,
use a coaster.
It really feels like a good like 60% of Democratic members in federal government were like just not honest about how they feared a Trump presidency, and like either don't have the ganas, as in they don't have the drive that you're talking about, that ambition, that hunger, or they just like are not being upfront about what their priorities are. Their priorities about, you know, their own advancement and arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. We have a super chat from Ian. A key aspect to Nick's success that doesn't get enough pointed out enough is how he's on specific key issues. He's much more extreme, but on less key issues, he's able to come off much more normal compared to MAGA diehards. I also think that there's a kind of like down to earthness about him. But this guy's like a kissless virgin who, if he's gonna like fail in his movement, it's probably because he has issues, you know, in terms of his sleep schedule, in terms of his personal life, whatever that might be.
He sells that.
Right.
He sells that, man. Part of the aesthetic. Sorry if we're distracting.
Yeah. No.
But the part of his aesthetic, they were talking about who was it? It was either JD Vance or it was Vivek Ramaswamy, and one of them did a derisive comment towards kissless virgins in their parents' basement, eating chicken nuggets and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, and Nick did this like 2-minute rant where he's like, oh, you're talking shit about this part of the demographics. These are the people who got you elected. These are the people who are part of your base. I am them. And he went on like a Zoomer fail son rant.
Yeah.
But like, here's the thing.
Vivek could never do that. Vivek could never do it, partly because he's Indian. And so I'm sorry. I think that, I know the polls have it really close. Like, I think he's going to underperform in Ohio. He might lose Ohio, which is swung very much to the right. So one is he's Indian, but two is he's too manicured. Whereas with Nick, even though
he made what, millions or billions off of selling a drug that didn't work.
Yeah. In some ways, Nick's faults, and I have to be honest, this is also true of Destiny to some extent. Like, his faults give him a kind of credibility or cachet with the people who look up to him. And the same is true with Trump. Kyle Kalinske talks about this a little bit, that he often quotes Trump. I forget the exact line, but Trump was like, you got to have a little dirt. You can't be too clean. But there's a kind of like, when there is a vulnerability in whether Nick is gay, whether Nick is wants to get a wife, the shit he said in the past, that kind of baggage, in some sense, has become bolstering for him, and that he kind of owns it and leans into it a little bit for whatever reason. But yeah,
that goes back to Andrew Wilson, man.
Yeah, go make the connection.
Oh, I was going to say, if you have a vulnerability, it's another Game of Thrones quote from the TV show before it sucked ass. Tyrion Lannister's talking to Jon Snow, and he says, where you're a bastard, wear what you are like armor, that way it can never be used against you. And Jon Snow says, hold on, you're not a bastard. And he's like, I'm a dwarf. Every dwarf is a bastard in their father's eyes. And so, it's kind of the thing. It's like, whatever you're vulnerable. So for instance, let's say Andrew Wilson had done some soul searching, and he'd been like, you know what? I'm a part of the right wing red pill era, but I'm not with the rest of red pillars there. Then the way that he would have gotten pissed off is he would have gotten pissed off, but it would have been this sense of not like vulnerable indignation, but righteous indignation, where he was like, fuck you for bringing this up. It's never been a part of my principle set to not marry stepmothers.
Right.
I always advocate for X, Y, Z, ABC. Now, from his perspective, he might think that he did that, but from our perspective, it looked like he was getting pressed.
Yeah.
And so you have to own your vulnerability, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, and also match energy, which I think Fuentes does more effectively than someone like JD Vance. And like, who sees the JD Vance fucking wearing that meme of him and is like, oh wow, look,
oh yeah,
so
no,
cool.
that didn't.
It's fucking
people
lame.
like, oh, this is so epic, and I was like,
yeah,
that doesn't really feel. It didn't feel like. I know that he probably thought he was having a good time, but it looked like he was trying to have a good time instead of actually having a good time. And you can kind of vibe on that subconsciously.
I totally fucking agree with that. And in a way, it feels like Trump with the McDonald's outfit. There's a kind of silliness or a kind of like absurdity to some of what Trump does.
Weirdly enough, I kind of felt like Trump owned that one.
No, that's what I mean. But it's just so fun. It's just like an absurd little thing that he did. It's just
he's a goof.
It's like a little goofy thing. And I feel that way sometimes with Fuentes, that this might lull people into it. When he's like, having sex with women is gay. Having sex with men is gay.
Funny.
It's all gay. And humor is disarming. And humor has a way of just totally.
Yeah, you forget how nefarious his ideology is for a few seconds. Yeah. Dude, that's one of the things whenever I engage with Nick's content. I've tried to engage with Hassan Piker's content half a dozen times. It's so dry and it's so boring and it's so mediocre, and it shocks me that he has a career. Whereas with like Nick's, content, people be constantly talking crazy shit about Nick, and I'll be like, yeah, all of that's true. He's charismatic, he's funny, and he's entertaining. It's actually like it's fun to engage with his content.
Yeah, I think that I probably agree. I certainly watch more Fuentes than I do Hassan. I watch a lot of right-wing content, and now let's make the comparison left-wing, since we talked enough about the right-wing kind of internal stuff and specifically the grippers. The left-wing feels like we are behind the ball on some of this stuff. One of the reasons why
you're behind the ball in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Before we open that can of worms, can I read a chat from my side?
Yes, go for it. Yeah. You don't even have to ask.
Okay. So number one, I want to thank everybody: Purple Politics, McDevin, Grassroots Hegemon, Gen X, Tristan Clark, and Grassroots for a couple of super chats. I want to thank you a lot, particularly $100 super chat from Grassroots. But this is something that is related that I think is important. Couples will concede with one another in places, but they need a place to go and demonstrate their value. Publicly, a common workspace. I want to build one. A garage, 3D printers, car lifts, sewing machines. Remind people they like other people because they are talented. So hold on. So in my ideal world, I start making Josiah style money. Now, I don't expect to really get there, but if I did, okay. Wealth inequality, rapid demographic change, existential technological shifts, dissolution of the social fabric. We can't really do anything about rapid demographic change. Okay, we can't. People like condoms, so the birth rate has fallen through the floor, and some degree of immigration is necessary in order to prop up our economic models. The only thing we can do about rapid demographic change is have people socialize with each other so they stop seeing each other as the enemy. That's the only thing we can do about that. Existential technological shifts. We just have to ride the wave. And truth be told, we are a part of the existential technological shifts because 2 decades ago, you and me having a video conversation streamed to a few hundred people was not possible.
No.
Right? So we just have to ride the wave of existential technological shifts. And also it could be fun like 3D printing. 3D printing and maker spaces are amazing.
You mean more than just
dissolution of the social
Warhammer minis?
What's that?
More than just Warhammer minis?
Those make wealth inequality worse. So wealth inequality and dissolution of the social fabric. Wealth inequality, that's like a technocratic thing that almost needs to be handled at the federal level via taxation. It also needs to be handled at the individual level where you have to climb as high as you can go on an individual basis. I don't expect to be able to affect macroeconomics. So wealth inequality, I'm incapable of addressing. But the dissolution of the social fabric, we are. So number one, I think you and I and Twitch and YouTube politics in general is a digital third space. And so all we can really do within our sphere is try to be good stewards of our digital third space. But then what Grassroots is talking about, and he is a man of wealth, I think we need to encourage people like that to create physical, real third spaces in the communities. That way, maker spaces, bars, Warhammer stores, all that kind of stuff, they can kind of be these things that, help undissolve the social fabric and reintegrate rapid demographic change. But those are things that we can and should do without the federal government. And I think if we wait on the federal government to address these problems, we're going to fail as a society. Now we can talk about the left.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think that there are aspects to community building that I think conservatives oftentimes have a leg up on when it comes to like church and community, that kind of shit. It's unfortunate because I think that there should be the Democrats and the left should all be about community and building, connections between classes and between different groups of people. But for whatever reason, sometimes it feels like when you're in a city, there is a kind of like city connection, a kind of vibe about the city, and certainly you can make it your own. I'm not trying to say that, but it feels like a different kind of community than the one that Republicans build. I don't know if I'm not putting it into coherent words, but there is something there that I have to think about more. Onto the left's other sort of more like online coalition building issues and the kind of energy issue. I do think that, without trying to put too fine a label on it, I don't know where is the movers and shakers of the left wing online space kind of thing, because a lot of them feel like very boomery or very old style. You have people like Tim Miller, that's his name, right? The Bulwark guy. You have the Pod Save people.
It's funny enough, he was supposed to be a never Trump Republican, but
yeah, he's whatever. One of the reasons, by the way,
he's drifted left.
Yeah, I think for sure, and I think people who are like committed to the Republic are doing the same. I think you are drifting left, frankly. But all I'm trying to say
is that the Overton window running away from me to the right?
Maybe.
Real quick, because Gen X has donated $20. She said,
"Sure,
talk to Pisco about how Trump doesn't need Congress to vote to release the files." But he said that earlier, and I acknowledge that. We all know Trump could release them unilaterally and is actively choosing not to.
Yeah.
So is there something deeper that we need to address there, or no?
She might have just missed that part.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Gen X, you are seen, you are acknowledged, you are loved.
You are valid.
Continue.
Yeah, no. I feel that many left-wing creators are interested in supporting Democrats and building their brand, which is all well and good, but they don't have that sort of power perspective just yet, and they're not. They're trying to work within the systems and like, let's reach out to the senators and let's make sure that they're hearing us, and let's sometimes support a primary challenge here and there. But it's not like let's get our people in there, right? It's not like the Groypers are, right? Let's embed ourselves and become the power, as opposed to let's interface with power. I think that's a different thing. And I think Hassan is one of those people too, where he seems more lazy than Fuentes, if I'm being honest, in this, or not as ambitious in the sense of he is trying to influence, sure, but is he trying to embed? Is he trying to create a power base separate and apart from his job as an influencer? And that's one of the reasons why I supported Mamdani, is because even the primary, despite my differences on policy, and I do think I have some significant differences, and I think that he's not going to be able to get a lot of the stuff he wants to get done. I've always thought that. And a lot of things that he sold on, I think, are pie in the sky. I did think that there was an energy about him, an authentic excitement that is so lacking in other members of the Democratic Party that that I just wanted to have more people like that, regardless. It really isn't so ideological for me. It's about the contrast in the old guard, the contrast to Cuomo from a corruption standpoint, and less about and like the promise of the future, less about the specific ideology. And that's a little bit much for me to say, because like I used to be someone who would be like, I'm voting on ideology, I'm voting on this policy, that policy. I'm not sure that that's my main concern now. I'm looking at long-term stability of the Democratic Party and what will make us stronger to preserve the country. And that is going to, I think, like we're going to have to think about this with a longer time horizon than we're used to.
Well, that's where I think the Grill Hottest, as small as we are as a community, I think we have the right attitude. And I think that this is actually the challenge I was going to point out as you were laying out this framework. So similar to you, the actually the right wing, I suppose, just to analogize it, the 55% around MAGA is the energetic momentum, but the dissident right wing is the energetic momentum that will likely survive MAGA. And so we're probably going to be re-co-opted, in my opinion, once Trump is gone. The momentum is going to be re-co-opted by the political establishment, and we might have people who try to skinwalk Trump in order to seize power. But I expect like the deep state Republicans, the establishment Republicans, the neoconservatives, I expect them to have more influence once Trump is gone. On the left wing, though, I think you guys have a pretty difficult challenge, because if you're talking about, I was thinking of Justice Democrats when you were talking about integration, when you were talking about taking who you wanted and putting them into positions of power. But realistically, I think Justice Dems helped get the squad elected, and then the squad kind of got their teeth kicked in a lot. And then AOC kind of moderated, which made her a more viable politician. But at the same time, like, it wasn't the vision that the Justice Dems originally had of having like staunch, aggressive, ideological, unbreakable progressives in positions of power. Now, for me, I think the challenge with what you're talking about is the revolutionary sentiment kind of is with further left people than, let's just say, milquetoast brunch liberals. But the problem is, I would almost want to see a revolution of hungry brunch liberals. Yeah. The problem is that it's what we were talking about earlier with the Protoss, where they're arguing about who should be in charge of this fucking council or this thing or that thing. Meanwhile, they're enduring a civilizational invasion by a voracious series of monsters. It seems like a lot of liberals. Do you remember Oliviana Juliana or whatever the fuck her name was? The kind of the thicker chick who was talking about men's issues for like 2 weeks?
I remember everyone saying like, you don't know who this person is. And I'm like, no. And yeah, I remember this. Yes.
Okay. So the point is, the reason why I'm bringing her up is it feels like what's happening with the liberals is there's a new flavor of the week of like a liberal influencer, Brian Tyler Cohen or Olivia Juliana, and BTC is huge. I'm not trying to knock him that way, or Josiah, even as an example. But what ends up happening is once they hit that comfort level, they're just establishment Democrats, and they shell for the establishment,
and they're the news.
Yeah,
they're the news, and they do a good job, and they present like a good message. And I respect BTC a lot. I respect Josiah a lot. And I think that they're doing good work, and that's their role, and that we need people in that role for sure, 100%. I'm worried, man.
But
like, I think we need no. I think we need Obama
the
back.
Revolutionary hunger.
Yeah, where's the hunger among the moderates And I think the only thing that can create hunger for the moderates or whatever is like generational charisma and optics and vibes. I truly think that we need to see some fucking Giga Chad, good talker, smooth motherfucker who's able to charm our base into overdrive, because I want to not just win by the margins we won in 2025 in this election, but by like plus 20. We need to redo the map totally if we want to save this country.
So I think that weirdly enough, Gavin Newsom could technically fill that slot. However, the fear with Gavin Newsom is that we kind of talked about how like sociopaths are the people who climb to the top. So number one, he looks a lot like Christian Bale from American Psycho, especially when he's smiling. Number two, he's trying to fit that niche already. He's going on the podcast bro stuff. He's trying to have long form conversations, which is good. But then the question is he another, I guess, like establishment shill where he's going to say all of the right things, but he's not going to have that earnestness. He's not going to have that ideological purity. He's not going to have a vision. And therefore, it's all going to fall apart. And that's the thing about like liberals. So it seems like there's a choice between really like two viable factions, I suppose. It's like abundance Democrats, who I do like. They're about deregulation, slashing red tape, massive public infrastructure investments.
Reaganites.
Trying to build the cities of the future. Trying to build the infrastructure of the future.
I'm kidding. I'm talking shit, but there are aspects of the agenda
that I
really support.
I think leftists have every reason to be scared of abundance Democrats, because abundance Democrats, let's be real, what happens once you deregulate? There's a temporary economic boom. The people who are supposed to benefit the most don't. They get screwed over and left by the wayside. And then the people who profit the most end up being the people who were already doing quite well. That's the history of, like American investment infrastructure and deregulation. So I understand why the far left wing is distrustful of abundance Democrats. But then the other people who seem to have like ideological momentum, I suppose, are far left wingers. And I'll say it now. I hear you. It's scary to me that you are so looking for momentum that you throw in for somebody who I ideologically abhor. And that's like, it's just scary. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying it's scary.
Yeah, I think that I get that. And I understand people's frustration that because Mamdani, I guess, supports certain rent control policies, the freezing of certain rents. And, he is an unapologetic democratic socialist. He quotes Eugene Debs in his speech, which is, frankly, I'm going to sound like a fucking loser saying this. I think he's entitled to have a triumphal speech. It was pointed, man. It was definitely pointed at, I think Cuomo deserves it and Trump deserves it for sure. But so I can understand some of the misgivings there.
Well, can I tell you the sentence for me,
and there's some of the agenda that I totally agree with, and I will always take this over corruption, which I just view Cuomo and those kind of old guard people as corrupt, and I will never vote for a Republican in this context unless they have a huge disavowal of Trump.
Yeah, so let me tell you the sentence that I'm scared of, and actually let me read a super chat and then do that. Yeah, so Mellow D with the big 50. Good God, my Oilers are oiling this morning. So got the new job, sending some shekels your way for entertaining me in the morning. Ask Pisco, what's next? What's the next time you're going to be invited back on a Live and Learn? If I can make a request, please be unhinged like Prime Kai.
Oh yeah, we should right. we should invite you to Live and Learn.
We can fight about Mamdani. But
yeah, we had Prime on, so I think the thing is you'll probably agree with us, right? Like, what were we gonna fight about? What would you get unhinged about?
Well, I mean, we could be fighting about the future of the Democratic Party or
my position is that you're already a Democrat. You're just in the closet.
Okay. Well, I would, but if there was a sane Republican, I would pick a sane Republican over a Democrat.
There's just not. It's like saying like, oh yeah. Like, imagine that your party gets taken over by Groypers. If there
was the unicorn, I would vote for the unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, like,
all right, hold on. Hey, listen.
Who's the most sane Republican in Congress right now? Name him.
But Most sane Republican. Probably weirdly enough,
Massey.
Dan Crenshaw.
Oh, Crenshaw.
Crenshaw, and then Kinzinger, unfortunately, is no longer in Congress, although he might be running as a Democrat to get back in. Kinzinger, if
Kinzinger runs as a Democrat, I mean, I would definitely consider voting for him. But Crenshaw, I mean, like, given the choice between Crenshaw and Kinzinger running as a Democrat, you're going to vote for Kinzinger.
Well, probably because Crenshaw's simping for Trump. But again, once Trumpism is done, hopefully there's better options. But anyways, I do want to focus on something real quick, which is what was it? It was Mamdani. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So with Mamdani, and real quick, if people are like, hey, Crenshaw's a Ziocon and a neocon, yeah. But Nikki Haley, yeah, if Nikki Haley hadn't done the anti-privacy internet shit. Also Chris Christie. Dude, weirdly enough, Chris Christie, I swear to God, if he looked like Thor from the Avengers, Chris Christie would be president of the United States. I swear to God. Because he would, on the primary stage, he would start with something critical of Trump, and the entire audience would be like, boo! Fuck you, like boo. And then he would yap for 2 minutes. And then by the end of the 2 minutes, the entire audience would be clapping. It was awesome. But anyways, all right.
It's kind of his New Jersey sensibilities. So you're asking about Mamdani, sorry, go.
Oh, the sentence about Mamdani. So Mamdani said.
Mamdani. What the fuck? You guys can't fucking pronounce any.
Mamdani?
Mamdani, yes. Mamdani.
Okay, so what I said, mom instead of man.
You said mom dami, like you're fucking talking to your, call girl.
I mean, legitimately, I thought that's what it was. But anyways, Mamdani.
Mamdani. Zoran
I have to look up the
Mamdani.
spelling.
Bro, you just spelled it.
Mamdani.
No. M-A-M. Mamdani.
Mom, yeah. So I would pronounce that as mom, like my mom, and then Donnie, like a girl named Danny, but I'm changing the D to
you
an
said mom Dami.
Oh,
you said mom Dami.
Maybe that's a Freudian slip. I don't know. So, anyways, the mommy domination aside.
Did you say Zoran?
Mom Donnie. Zoran. There we go. That's easier. Okay, Zoran. So Zoran said this thing where it was, there is no problem complex enough that government can't solve it, and there's no problem so small that government can't care about it. That fucking sentence is crazy to me. Now, I understand like lefty paternalism. He's like a nice guy. He smiles a lot when he's on camera and all that kind of shit. But in my opinion, the United States of America is a liberal or libertarian project. It is a project where free men and free women of good conscience are supposed to work, pay their bills, pay their taxes, and enjoy themselves. And the government is supposed to fuck off as much as possible, except when it's necessary. That's the American project. And so to have a guy say, we can solve mass demographic change, we can solve existential technological issues, we can solve the dissolution of the social fabric, and if you stub your toe on the sidewalk, that's also my problem. That is like Care Bear communist bullshit that freaks me the fuck out.
I mean, there's two ways you can interpret that. In your way, in the most fucking bland, literal, maximalist vision of what he means. Or maybe you could have an ounce of charity and just think, okay, maybe he's talking about like the cost of halal food and how that affects people in the city. Or maybe he's talking about little things like, I say little, but like the garbage on the street in New York. That's something that actually Mayor Adams was like, he's talking about he's going to fix. Maybe he's talking about the, remember I found out, actually Aaron told me this, that the whole thing, do you know Glusen Perez did the Banana Act thing? Apparently that's do you know what I'm talking about? Where she's like, turns out there's a law against handling fresh fruit with your kids. Turns out that was like all like not as clear that that's what the law said, and Lucian Perez like made a meal of it. Whatever. But those maybe if you interpret the statement as like there are these like annoying things that government can solve more easily as a collective action problem, and we shouldn't just forget about these like annoyances within the city. Now, if you interpret it in the maximalist, literalist version, yeah, obviously I don't agree with that. I don't think government should get into like necessarily solve interpersonal disputes or like family issues or that kind of stuff. I think that there's obviously domains that I don't want the government touching. But I guess you don't want to give them any charity.
My charity, though, I cannot extend charity to somebody who's coming from a political tribe that I'm already skeptical of. And just as an example, I know that Hassan Piker hung out with Mamdani once, and then I know that he was barred from the after party or whatever, right? I know that.
Was he barred?
And he wasn't barred from the party, but he couldn't go to the VIP area with Mamdani.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but the way
Does
that
I matter to you, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah. Hold on. So hold on. This is where, for me, I understand your. I guess your je ne sais quoi. I understand your anxiety about normie libs and normie progressives being so lackadaisical that there's no sense of urgency, no sense of emergency, no sense of momentum. And as a result, even if you disagree with Mamdani, you're willing to throw in with him for a sense of momentum and energy. I understand that descriptively. However, the way that I perceive this within political tribalism would be like a never Trump Republican saying that, oh, well, I don't really like Donald Trump, but the momentum's with him, and I just want some excitement in the Republican base.
Okay,
I see that concern. Furthermore,
go for it.
Furthermore, it would be like if Nick Fuentes was invited to do an interview with Trump, and then afterwards he was invited to the after party. He wasn't banned from the after party, but he wasn't allowed in the VIP. That's the way that I view Mamdani and Hassan Piker. And also one of the things that we could fight about is I legitimately think Hassan Piker is one of the biggest pieces of shit in online politics, and the normalness with which liberals accept him pisses me off.
So basically, a couple of things I'm hearing. One is that you kind of view Hassan and Fuentes in terms of magnitude similar in terms of harm, or just in terms of their ideology.
Yeah,
because presumably Hassan has like basically no power in the Democratic Party, and Fuentes is looking like he's on the rise to get power. So I don't know that you would grant that it's similar in degrees of harm, but maybe you're just talking about ideologies.
I would talk about ideology. I would also talk about like relevance with the next generation, like the younger people. I understand that Hassan might have a larger international audience. Like there's somebody told me this. I don't know if it's true, but apparently like a lot of like young international people who speak English watch Hassan. So that helps with his numbers. I don't know if that's true. But at the same time, when you're talking about 20,000 to 50,000 live, hundreds of thousands of post-recorded views, millions, if not billions of cumulative views, and you're talking about energy with like the youth under 30 or under 40, I do view size and influence, maybe not getting into the party yet, but I view them as like similar sizes, similar influence.
Okay, got it. Let me address that after. First, I'll do the Mamdani point, because I think that there's a genuine concern here, which is like that what I said might be misconstrued as like a kind of like Faustian bargain that was made or kind of proposed for Trump, and that might be on offer for Fuentes for people in the future or something. And the difference, I think, are legion. One of which is I do believe Mamdani is committed to the rule of law and to principles in a way that Trump is just not. And so, the minute Mamdani starts like breaking the law or trying to go beyond his authority and, I don't know, institute an illegal tax, I'm going to be the first person to call it out. I just don't have any indication that he is committed to anti-democratic principles. He's a democratic socialist, and I recognize that. And there's some policies I disagree with. There's also some policies I agree with. I disagree with rent control in general, but we've already had rent control. I disagree with the rent freeze in general, but that's not the first time we've done it. I don't disagree with like free buses. I just think that we should be able to pursue it legally. I don't have that much of a problem with like the free not the free, the people who said free grocery stores. That's not what he's proposing. The government-run grocery stores. I don't have like a principled position against that. And so in general, the policy offerings, there are some policies that I disagree with significantly with Mamdani on, but it's not like this huge like beyond word shift in like how I view what Sanders might do or what AOC might do, and these are politicians that I support and have always supported, and so there's a similar coherence in terms of like their political tradition in the sense of being committed to democratic principles and rule of law that wasn't apparent for Trump. Trump is a demagogue. Mamdani is not. Mamdani was not talking down to Trump voters, not talking down to any particular groups, wasn't saying things that were anti-Semitic, wasn't saying things that were trying to pin all problems on particular subsets. To the extent that he was doing that, it was a form of class warfare or class selectionism, which I think is in this context in a country that is where so much power is in the hands of a few and of elites, and we were even commenting on the income inequality. We could use a little bit of that energy. It's much less going after the weak and going after the powerful, and that's something that I respect more than what Trump was doing. But he doesn't lie as much as Trump does. I mean, I think he probably lied a couple times there. I think I saw a couple lies, but Trump is just lying everywhere. So in terms of there's more I could list off, but like I just view it as so different.
Okay. This is where there's a legitimate difference between you and I, though. And this is where I actually do think that we have the ideological difference, what was supposed to be the ideological difference between Democrats and Republicans between us right now. Okay. Now, bear in mind, as I lay out this narrative, I understand it's historically bullshit, but let me just lay out the narrative that I was raised with as a kid.
You have all the time in the world.
So the narrative that I was raised with as a kid is that Democrats, root word democracy, are advocates for the people. And the people should live with dignity, work hard, have good lives, all that kind of stuff. But effectively what it ends up being is gives. Gives me that, gives me this, gives me this. Okay? And so it becomes a question of voting in benefit. So for instance, free buses, rent control, blah, 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 blah. What Republicans are supposed to believe in a republic of representative democracy, in which we elect the best amongst us in order to craft technocratic policy that isn't just good for the average workers of America, but it's also good for like the whole. And so that's supposed to be republicanism as representative democracy. And the Republicans, because they, understand economics and they're former business moguls and they're this and they're that, and they're generally speaking, try to appeal to successful people, generally speaking, they're better at crafting technocratic policy. Now, within my lifetime of, I would say, the past 40 years, past 50 years, what's happened is because of Reaganite deregulation, because of neoliberal Bill Clinton policies, because of neoconservative militaristic interventionism through Bush, and then because I would actually say Obama was actually a step back towards advocating towards the people, what's happened is deregulation and kind of like anarchic chaos due to deregulation that's so drastic that to calibrate society, we probably need some left-wing advocacy. We probably need more dignified wages. We probably need the working class to be in a better material position. However, that doesn't change my political position of, in general, my fear is people like Trump, because he has weird left-wing economic policies, people like Mamdani will use the legitimate grievances of the working class in order to rise to power and then instantiate dog shit, perverse incentive, terrible technocratic policies that actually make our societies worse. And that's my fear.
Yeah, but okay, that could be true of any Democrat you elect. I mean, the similarities between Mamdani and Trump are like they're both populists. I agree with that.
They're both economic populists.
They both veil themselves in populist.
Use economic populist rhetoric if you want to be specific.
Yeah, correct. So I don't think Trump is like truly implementing policies to like the tariffs. I think are just as much about personal corruption as any other business policy. I don't think he's genuinely motivated to help people. I just don't think that he has that bone in his body. I don't think he's capable of it. So that's the sense in which they're similar. But in terms of personality, couldn't be more different. in terms of genuineness, I think couldn't be more different. In terms of commitment to the rule of law, couldn't be more different. In terms of, Trump's story, his whole story is one of privilege and ripping people off and fucking people over and being rude and crass, where I see Mamdani's story as emblematic of America. It inspires me in a way that Trump's doesn't. Trump puts all of the world's problems on the feet of immigrants and the weak.
Why is Mamdani's story inspiring? And again, this is maybe me being a skeptical douche, but like, isn't Mamdani's story that like his parents, what was it, Uruguay, where his parents had immigrated to, or
Uruguay,
Uganda?
Yeah,
it was one of those.
In Uganda, yeah, one of those.
Right,
two. One of those U countries, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, so he went to a U country, and his parents, I think, are like extremely academically elite. Like I would have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure his dad is like a professor or some shit. And I think his mom,
immigrant story, obviously.
His mom.
He's a
an artist.
Yeah, I mean they're academically inclined. I'm not saying that they're poor. I'm not saying it's a rags to riches. The story that inspired me is like, he's not even a first generation American. He was born. He's not a natural born citizen. But he's an immigrant, a Muslim immigrant who has come to this country and become the mayor of New York City at a time in which prejudices are rampant. 20 years after, I want to bring up 9/11, after there was a huge rash of, anti-Muslim attacks and stuff like that. And yeah, just basically coming from like a more normal household that is able to integrate itself into New York and into the United States. That to me is an inspirational story, as opposed to like Trump, who's bombastic and a cheat and a liar and basically a scammer. Like, this is a piece of shit. And so like basically on every ground other than this populist rhetoric, they're so different. And like, they're obviously so different. And so when I hear this comparison, Mamdani to Trump, they both kind of inspire a kind of loyalty among a particular base, and they have this populist rhetoric. But like, in what other respect are they similar?
Yeah, so I think it's the I'll just be charitable and say economic populist rhetoric, and say that's like the main crux of it. But the reason why this is frustrating to me, I suppose, is and by the way, we should probably talk about Islamophobia in a second. My Islamophobia specifically.
Oh, what do you mean?
Yeah, you want to fight on live and learn? Let's talk about Islam. So
you think like I'm a fan of Islam?
No, but let's just say I'm probably more Islamophobic than you guys. Although prescriptively, we might be more aligned than you would initially think.
Like I'm a critic of most Abrahamic religion, or all of it. I guess I'm Christian phobic or whatever phobic. I kind of roll my eyes at the term. I'm going to be honest. I think it's more like anti-Muslim bias. That's like kind of what I think is a huge problem. Now, Islamophobia has kind of captured that meaning a bit, but you're not going to hear me like defending the doctrine of Islam.
Let's talk about my anti-Muslim bias in a second.
Okay.
So the economically populist rhetoric. Okay, you have to understand that the same way that I think that Trump is kind of an idiot chasing cars, but realistically, there are people who hid their power level in order to get into the Trump administration and are integrating nefarious policies as a result. That is the way that Groypers or Groyperlites, like, who is it? Stephen Miller is a Jew, but he's like a super Zionist, and he's also like borderline in American like ultra nationalist. Like, he doesn't have specific bad things to say about Black people and Hispanic people, but he's effectively like hostile. Anybody who doesn't have citizenship, he's hostile to. Anyone who's been naturalized but like speaks against Trumpism, he's hostile to.
Yeah, but
anybody
who's not down with the
MAGA agenda. Sorry, what's that?
I grant that. How does that bear on Mamdani?
Okay, so what I was going to say is Mamdani himself. I don't really care about the personality. I'm more talking about like policy, and I'm also talking about the what would you call it? Like a bellwether, like a flag where the political winds are blowing. He's more, to me, he's an indication of where the political winds are blowing. Where what's happening is you, a liberal and progressive, are comfortable with Mamdani because even though 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he was like BLM, defund the police, open socialist who was quoting the Communist Manifesto, now his policies are effectively social democrat, so you're Gucci with it. And then same thing with Hassan Piker. You're
Sanders
like, oh, Hassan Piker's a nobody.
Sanders
Fuck him.
went
Who
to
gives a shit about Hassan Piker? Sorry, go ahead.
Sanders went to Cuba and did a little.
I don't like Sanders either. I think Sanders hides his power level like a motherfucker. I think Sanders was a socialist or communist, but then he realized that America is not ready for socialism or communism. So he effectively became in policy a social democrat while trying to rehabilitate the term and concept of socialism. I think the same thing of AOC, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I hear you. I think that a lot of the ideas of communism and socialism are cringe. I don't call myself a socialism or communism, but I am willing to, if you're a democratic socialist committed to the rule of law, I am willing to abide your presence in a democratic coalition and even vote for you. I voted for Sanders in 2016 in the primary. I voted for Sanders in the primary in 2020, even after Biden had clinched it. I would vote for AOC if she were my congresspeople. And so, I'm not, even though I don't self-identify.
I'm sorry for laughing, but I view the MAGA movement, the people who are like, oh, January 6th was bad. I view them as Democratic groypers. You know, like that. That's how I view it. They're like
Wait, what?
groypers who are committed to the Constitution and the rule of law. But if they could have a Christian nationalist theocracy with a God King at the head, they would. But they know that's anti-constitutional.
Who are you comparing to groypers for Jan 6? I didn't understand that at all. Can you just
I
repeat
view
it?
Democratic socialists as, let's say that groypers threw Democratic on the front end. That way you knew they were the good guys. That's how I view Democratic socialists.
Because you don't actually believe they're sincere, the Democratic socialists, that they would adhere to rule of law and the Constitution. I just have a different intuition about their sincerity. And the reason why you're laughing at the Democratic groyper is because everyone knows they're insincere about that. But I just do think that Sanders and AOC and them are sincere about their commitment to the rule of law. I don't think that they would do it. And I don't think Mamdani will either. And if they do, I'll be the first to call them out. And I will. And I definitely will not just be, you started this conversation by being like, I can't wait till the Democratic majority comes in and you're just standing for everything they do. There are definitely things on which the Democratic Party I agree with, and certainly a lot that I disagree with, and I've been vocal about all of it. But I'm also I'm serious about these principles, and I think what you're saying is I'm the sheep letting in the wolf in the sheep's clothing, and so I'm kind of being taken for a ride. I just have a different impression about these people's sincerity, and I don't know why you can differently.
You can, and by the way, you could feel about them the same way that I feel about Peter Thielian techno-feudalism, okay? Because realistically, what Peter Thielian techno-feudalism, if you listen to some of his interviews, for instance, with Ross Douthat, or if you listen to, I watched another interview with him, I forget who it was with, but it was a good interview. If you look at it, Peter Thiel, despite being friends with Jeffrey Epstein as recently as 2017, what he is allegedly all about is that he believes that American tech innovation is stagnating. That if you look at what happened in the 20th century, the refrigerator, air conditioning, the telephone, I already said air conditioning, the internet, military industrial complex innovations, radar, LiDAR, all that kind of stuff. All this stuff was an explosion of tech innovation. And what he sees is, as we are evolving as a species, he sees a funnel that we're kind of heading into right now, where tech innovation is stagnating and it's becoming increasingly centralized within computers. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to deregulate from the federal government, and he's trying to focus on AI and Palantir and whatever their investment firm is and all that kind of stuff. And they're trying to create the tech innovations necessary that are foundational in order to usher in the next generation of technological abundance that's going to unleash the productive capacity of the human species.
You're not a Thielite, are you?
I'm not a Thielite. I'm just trying to highlight his.
Okay, because he's written basically that democracy sucks and that it should be replaced.
But he hates democracy because it restrains his capacity to do what he wants to do.
Right, but Sanders and AOC have no such statements out there that I'm aware of. I mean, the worst thing AOC I feel has done is say ignore the Supreme Court. She said that one time about Biden or something, and I condemn that statement. But
you have to understand my perspective on democracy and capitalism. So I think that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones, and I think that capitalism is the worst economic system except for all the other ones.
But you start to see my frustration when you're like comparing, or you're bringing up Teal, maybe to make another point. So I might be lost. So it could be me confusing. So I'm sorry if I'm frustrating you, Connor. But like the comparison from Teal to AOC is like, it's so fuck, because Teal is such a fucking piece of shit and a fucking alien in a human's body. And same with Yarvin. These guys they suck and they wear it on their sleeves.
Well, and that's where I was going to get to. So it's the same thing with Elon Musk, by the way, because Elon Musk, even though they have like a different flavor of techno-feudalism, they're effectively pushing for the same project, which is you need to unleash the great men of society through deregulation so we can do what we need to do to advance the human species. That's effectively both of their political positions. And that's why Musk was a part of Doge. So anyways, so this narrative, though, there is an appeal. I'm not a Tealite, I don't think, but there is an appeal to the next wave of military industrial complex technology, which we could discuss if you wanted to a different time. There is an appeal to Starship, for instance, which is a rocket that can go 17,000 kilometers an hour across like a near Earth orbit, and it can lift 300,000 pounds worth of gear. That's
half of the blow up. What does it have to do with the Democrats and the Democratic Socialists?
So what I was going to say is, those ideas, while they can allude to things that I'm interested in, like space colonization or the next entrepreneurial tech wave or the next advancement of human beings, it's a siren song. The people who are singing me this song are ultimately dangerous. And so what I'm worried about is with AOC, Bernie Sanders, Mamdani, becoming normalized within the Democratic Party, and I view you as a part of that normalization. You can say like, oh, well, subsidized bus fare is great for the working class. Rent control is, it's not my favorite policy, but realistically, in a city as big as New York, it's necessary to some degree.
I don't agree with that, but it's already here. Rent control is here.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But even if you're not a part of that specific sanitization, your acceptance of their acceptance within the Democratic Party, it's going to normalize those ideas to the point that there's not an immediate. If I say food, water, and shelter should be free to every person within the United States, and it would be good if people owned a stock share of the companies that they worked for, does that like immediately throw off your like socialist revolutionary bells?
Does it? It signals to me a kind of socialist rhetoric. Yes. Okay. Anything about like sharing in the ownership structure as like
right, because Marxist socialism is the decommodification of basic human needs and workers owning the means of production, right?
It signals that, but Trump is saying that shit. Trump is trying to get us to stock in all this in a bunch of companies,
and in a lot of libertarians who are principled,
right? But like I don't think that they are. I think they're just trying to get healthcare for people, bro.
Right, which is again where I'm looking for hard lines, because let's say that a lot of people are frustrated with Paul Young, because he seems to play within the dissident sphere. And what I mean by that is he entertains their criticisms and their descriptions of the world, and then he'll do that for episode after episode after episode. And then he'll release one episode where he's like, this is the hard lines between me and this dissident right-wing group.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yes, I'm familiar with Paul.
Right. So hold on. So I know Paul, and I believe Paul to be like an earnest person. I genuinely think that he's trying to go into the dissident sphere to understand it as deeply as possible and then draw clear lines between himself and the dissident sphere. But what you have accused him of, and what I have accused him of, especially when he, well,
when what, you didn't accuse, I don't think I accused him of being a fascist.
Mainstreaming or sanitizing dissident rhetoric?
No.
Well, you should have. I should have.
Maybe. To me, that's kind of like
he did a debate with Big Joel where he was like steel manning Nick Fuentes for like 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sure he does that. I just didn't bring it up with him. And I'm sure.
Okay, but do you feel that?
My sense is that he finds aspects.
And by the way, I love Paul. So Paul, don't take this as shit talking. I'm trying to be descriptive.
I think he's a fan of Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I'm sure there's some places he would disagree with, but I think he's a fan.
So I think that he would disagree with that characterization because he would say that he was trying to explore all the dissident people in order to understand them at the maximal level so he could draw a clear line between him and the dissident right.
It's a fine line between an observer and a participant, and many people who have gone, trying to observe a cult or a culture or whatever, a particular phenomenon.
Yeah, they absorb
get wrapped up, and it's hard actually. I'm going to be honest. I watch a lot of America First. I watch a lot of, like I said, conservative media. He's a funny guy, and if you don't have your guard up, all the time, you can get lulled into this kind of like the rhythm of his dialogue. And so, I don't think that I'm someone who's like my initial inclination is very often to reject things, so I feel like I have a good inoculation to not get in that mold, and because I'm already so like lib-pilled or whatever, like eternally lib-pilled.
Okay, you're the best liberal, Pisco.
No, I'm
not
saying
never be suckered in.
I'm just saying like maybe, but the thing is my guard might be down. The reason I'm saying this is my guard is up for Fuentes, and your kind of point is like my guard is down for Mamdani, AOC, Bernie types, and that's what I'm trying to draw the connection there, which is like, and I think you're bringing home a point about PF Young, and I think that's the connection you're making, right?
Actually, no, you cut to the heart of it immediately. Okay. My criticism of a lot of liberals, including Josiah, including yourself, including Live and Learn, including IRI, including actually Hutch has been like I've been siding with Hutch the entire time because Hutch is the one person who seems to have his defense up. Is effectively like, I think that you guys, due to political pragmatism, wanting political momentum on your side, and also realizing how dire the political situation is within the United States, you are operating with your walls down when it comes to socialists and communists. And I don't like it.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you do you. I understand politically and pragmatically. Like, so for instance, when you were saying, I don't ideologically agree with Mamdani, but
on everything I said, on some stuff I do.
Yeah, but realistically, that's where the political momentum is, and I'm so starved for any kind of political momentum whatsoever. I'm willing to make an alliance of an alliance of pragmatism. I understand it descriptively. I just don't like it.
I mean, like, I think there might be other candidates who more align. Like, if I had to pick a candidate who like most aligned with me, I'd have to think about it a little bit more. I'm sure Mamdani is not the perfect fit there, but yeah, I think that in that context, he was the most viable alternative to Cuomo, and I viewed Cuomo as more of this like feckless, corrupt people who had basically led us to Trump. And I don't view the Democrats as solely responsible for that, but I feel a lot of their tendencies didn't help. And so I'm looking for an alternative. That is not, strictly speaking, ideological. It's a personnel issue and a character issue. Those are the things that most motivate my vote beyond the policy. If you swap Cuomo and Mamdani's policies, but you keep the character, you keep the my intuition about them, like I'm sure I would vote for Mamdani as well. To me, it really isn't an ideological issue here. It is about the future of the party, about getting rid of corruption, and making sure that like who we're voting for have the character of putting the people at the heart of things and not being selfish, right? Biden was selfish in many ways. He has a selfish streak to him. And I hate that because he also has a selfless streak to him as well. I don't think that he's a purely selfish person in the way that Trump is, but the Democrats who can't think about the greater good, that is a toxin we just need to excise. Maybe Mamdani will end up like that. Power has that kind of effect on people at times. And so I'm not naive in thinking that he won't be, but like some of these people are all about themselves, all about the ego. And at the bare minimum, Mamdani, yeah, did he give a fucking worldview in a paragraph? Is it overly simplistic? I am certain he won't be able to achieve many of the goals, and that some people will be very disappointed. I'm certain of that.
Sure, I'm just going to point out the parallel, even if you don't think this is totally parallel, that's fine. Phil Labonte, because he's a Tim Pool.
The Tim Pool guy, yeah.
Yeah, Tim Pool guy. So he's also, the lead singer for the band All That Remains, which is independently commercially successful of his podcasting career. But as a Tim Pool guy, we had a conversation maybe late 2024 before the election. And I was like, how the fuck can you be a Trump guy? You know, because I just wasn't getting it. He's libertarian, he's pro-gun, pro-market, pro this, pro that. But Trump is such a fucking disaster. How can you be a pro-Trump guy? And his argument effectively to me was, well, Trump isn't perfect, but the guardrails will hold. That was his argument. And so I feel like when people appeal to Mamdani not being able to achieve socialist or communist policy and or even his proposed policies that are social democratic in nature, that he will probably only be able to achieve 10% of what he wants or 30% of what he wants. I feel like it's a similar appeal to ineffectiveness where they're not really saying like, oh yeah, I disagree with his ideology. They're really saying like, well, his ideology, meh, but he's not going to be able to do it anyway, so who cares? And that's kind of how I hear that.
Yeah, so I think that there are many differences. I understand what you're saying. You're basically suggesting it's kind of like, oh, it's no big deal. He won't be able to do it, whatever. He's not promising to do the crazy ultimate tier shit of making New York a haven for Sufi Islam or making it.
But that's what Hassan does, dude.
What do you
every time Hassan's on stream, he's a socialist. Every time Hassan does an interview, he's a social democrat.
Okay. So, yeah, a person does one thing. Another person is a separate person. I don't know. Like, how would you... Am I supposed to...
Dude, I view anybody... this is just the way that I view it. Anybody who has socialist or communist rhetoric, unless they're specifically disavowing these ideas and they run as a social democrat, I think they're hiding their power level.
He disavowed Hassan on stage in the debate. You just said he didn't invite him to the VIP party. What do you mean, why? On the 9/11 stuff.
Why did he disavow Hassan?
On the 9/11 stuff.
That has nothing to do with socialism or communism.
Oh, you're saying he's hiding his power level. He's not. He quoted Debs. You can't say that he's hiding his, like what are you talking about? I think he's what he appears to be.
Quoted Debs?
Eugene Debs.
What did Eugene Debs say?
I don't know the quote exactly, but he's like the most famous American socialist. He ran for president like 3 or 4 times. Here we go. The super chat. Sorry. What is missing from Connor's argument is he approaches socialism as inherently dangerous and without evidence. If Zohar Mamdani had free reign to do whatever he wanted, what is the worst thing he could do? That's the next point I wanted to say is like the office of the mayor is different than the office of the president, and so I think that there's more viability in the argument that if this was my lead argument, that the guardrails will hold him in. But the two main lead arguments that I have are Mamdani is committed to the guardrails, I think. And if I didn't think he was, I wouldn't vote for him. I think he's committed to the guardrails. And if he starts being outside of the guardrails and showing that he's not committed to the guardrails and starts doing some crazy shit like imposing, like I said, illegal taxes or trying to like take ownership of a store without authorization, contrary to what Hochul is giving in terms of leeway from Albany, that's number one. And then the other part is he is not an unhinged, delusional piece of shit, horrible person like Trump is. I mean, those are huge, obvious distinctions.
Your super chatter is 100% correct. Your super chatter is saying that I am presuming that the ideology of socialism is inherently bad. I think they might have said that I didn't have evidence for it. I would appeal to history for that. And that's why. So for instance, like you guys might not see it this way, but this is the way that I legitimately see it, is a state that is powerful enough in order to redistribute food, water, and shelter, effectively like at the state's whim. And then also a state that is large enough to enforce ownership of the means of production is a state that's big enough to be authoritarian. And if you look at the history of the 20th century and early 21st century, it's almost exclusively like every socialist state that's ever existed ever has been like authoritarian. And the ones that weren't, they survived for 3 years and then they were stomped into the ground. So yeah, like they are correct I view socialism as a necessarily pernicious ideology that even if it starts out well-intended, becomes authoritarian over time.
Okay, I mean,
and
you can say that. I'll note, though, however, he's not doing what you're claiming he's doing, which is like hiding his power level. He's never said that he's not a democratic socialist.
Wait, but if he says, like, hey, I'm a socialist, I'm going to quote Eugene Debs, that's, like, worse for me, not better. That's
what do
worse.
you mean? What do you mean? If he's willing to do that, you're saying that so every communist, every socialist is a tanky. It's like is a Stalinist. I mean, that's basically what I'm taking.
This is the argument that I had with a narco-communist and a narco or libertarian socialist back in the Twitch and YouTube politics days. Is once again, like, if you want to go live on a fucking farm and decommodify basic human needs and have workers own the means of production within your little like polycule, and you raise like goats and ducks and shit, you do you. I don't give a fuck. Okay. But if you want society to be socialist, then I think it's necessarily authoritarian. Okay. We don't necessarily have to disagree or agree on this because we're probably just going to run in circles around the topic.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that I feel like a government that is large enough in order to decommodify basic human needs and have workers own the means of production is a government that necessarily will wield so much power that it will become authoritarian because there will be challenges to that power. It's the same conversation that Ethan Klein had with Hassan Piker, where he was like, well, you believe in democracy, right? And Hassan was like, yeah. And he's like, you believe in, freedom of speech and freedom of conscience. And Hassan was like, yeah. And then
yeah, but Hassan isn't Mamdani.
What would you do if there were capitalists who were gaining political momentum within your socialist society? And then Hassan was like, oh, education.
Yeah, but
re-education?
Dude, really? I mean, but Hassan is not Mamdani.
Really.
Hassan is not Mamdani. It would be like me saying
Hassan is not Mamdani, but I view Mamdani as a step towards Hassan. Ideologically. If we're in the political spectrum, you are to the right of Mamdani. Okay, descriptively, within the left-right dynamic, you are to the right of Mamdani.
Yes.
Mamdani, I think, is substantively to the left of you to the point that effectively, if he could snap his fingers with the current popular will that he has, he would govern as a social democrat. Okay. And he would institute, like, for instance, you made a joke like, we just want health insurance, bro, or we just want healthcare, bro. That's what I think that he would institute at this point. But I think that he is normalizing the rhetoric and ideology of people who are further to his left. And I think that you ignore this or sanitize this at your peril and my peril, truth be told.
So you're advocating for a civil war and for us to do what?
To unite. The coalition of girl hottists.
So the two libertarians,
the right-wing liberals, and the libertarians.
So the two libertarians who don't vote for Democrats, and the 5 Never Trump Republicans who are all becoming Democrats.
Yeah, and the liberals.
You motherfuckers are already voting for Democrats.
Yeah, but if the Republican Party becomes sane again, then maybe they'll return.
But then they're sane, and then I don't have to worry as much.
I mean, yeah, that's the goal.
I think your vote's secure, Connor.
Would you rather have, so for instance, like I say some anti-Muslim bigoted statements, but in general, I'm chill with like my Muslim neighbors or whatever. Maybe I make like a homophobic joke about how gay dudes are promiscuous sometimes, but realistically, I have gay neighbors and we get along excellent. I talk about like Asians, I don't know, driving poorly or some shit, but realistically, I love Asians. Like, would you rather have my level of bigotry and my level of right-wing politics, or would you rather have MAGA and the dissident right? And I think the clear answer is you would probably rather the right wing have my politics.
Yeah, I just think you're.
I would rather the left wing have your politics rather than Mamdani or Hassan Piker.
I mean, I agree with that, but I just feel like you're a racist Democrat. You're not a Republican at this point. I think you're trying to preserve
a racist pro-gun Democrat.
Yes. I don't really. And I think that this.
That's a Republican, bro.
I don't think so. I think we'll have to end on this because I first of all, great conversation. I love this conversation. I think that you are deeply, deeply in the closet, and you're looking around yourself, and you're trying to find the like-minded individuals who are like you, and they fit on a finger, on 5 fingers, and the ones who are like-minded, like Kinzinger, are going to the Democratic Party. And you're still fighting a lost war. You lost the war. You lost the war 8 years ago.
Yeah, but what's weird about this war, okay? Because I feel a great calibration coming in. I feel a great reckoning coming. Is that, like Littlefinger? I think we all love Game of Thrones here. Chaos is a ladder, right? And so what's going to happen when Trump steps down is it will be a scramble for power between the neoconservatives, the constitutional conservatives, the fiscal conservatives, the social conservatives, the groypers, the dissident right, the NatCons. And so if you concede the entire Republican Party to the NatCons, who hide their power level, and the groypers, then effectively what you're doing is you're solidifying Trumpism or Trump-esque policy and rhetoric as the way the right wing will be for the next century.
You don't have the path.
I don't know about you,
Connor.
I don't know about you. I'm exhausted by a decade of this shit. So I'm not interested in that. I would rather the neocons, cons. I would love all of them to rally.
They have no credibility.
The soul of the right.
They have no credibility.
It doesn't matter.
Romney doesn't have credibility. They're either dead. Cheney just died. They don't exist. They're gone. They're Democrats or they're converted to MAGA like Dan Crenshaw, where they're willing to play the Game of Thrones, or Nikki Haley type, which I hope after what she did, selling our country out by endorsing MAGA for political advantage, you're going to run to her arms after she did that, after she fucked us over? This party that you're playing into is dead.
But hold on. See, here's the thing, because we're also talking about a generational changing of the guard. The boomers in the next 20 years, regardless of whether or not we have another pandemic disease that acts as boomer remover, we will have a changing of the guard. And so while I only stream to 100 to 300 people, depending on the topic, by the way, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chats, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. While I only stream to 100 to 300 people, this is, at this time, financially viable for me to go for the next decade. And so if this is financially viable this early into my digital media career.
I don't doubt. Wait, counterpoints. Connor, I don't doubt that you're
I want to make the conversation. I don't want to be.
You are a viable media person. You're a viable creator.
So why wouldn't I want to reform the right to the way that I want it to be?
Because your audience is Democrats, Connor. Your audience is Democrats. Your audience are liberals.
And by the way,
and people who are voting for liberals
are becoming increasingly racist and pro-gun by the day.
I have one more super chat. Connor's website said he's pro-public option for healthcare. Is that not socialism? How are we sure Connor isn't hiding his power level? Also, you're right, peace go. The Cold War's over, let it go.
It's not the decommodification of basic human needs. Basic human needs is food, water, and shelter.
Oh, then by definition, Mamdani's not advocating for socialism. The only thing that's socialist about him is the fact that he calls himself socialist, correct? His policies isn't socialism, correct?
You just yes or no'd me. Say it again.
You just said public option isn't socialism. It's not decommodification. Then by definition, Mamdani's policies aren't socialist, correct?
Yeah, they're social democrat.
Okay. So in what sense is he a socialist? He's only a socialist because you, without evidence, say he's hiding his power levels, even though he's quoting Eugene Debs and specifically not hiding his power levels. And that's it, because he calls himself a socialist.
Well, I think Democratic socialists are hiding their power level as well.
AOC and Bernie.
Yeah. You brought up some of my evidence for that, by the way. You brought up that like Bernie Sanders traveled to Cuba and traveled to the Soviet Union. Didn't he fucking honeymoon in the Soviet Union at some point?
It's a different time, bro. I don't know what Soviet Union, but Cuba.
It was a different time. It was a worse time. The Soviet Union was more authoritarian and
I don't
more
know if
socialist.
he went to the Soviet. I don't know if he went to the Soviet Union specifically. It's fucking cringe. And you're basically saying
it's cringe to hate socialism?
No, it's cringe to like ever glaze for like Castro or whatever. Or glaze Soviet Union, if that's what happened. I don't think that's directly what happened.
I view that as worse than
you're
cringe.
basically
like aligning yourself
because he went to
with
Cuba.
The ideological enemies of the United States.
He went to Cuba one time, and so I think he's hiding his power.
And praised Castro, and went to Venezuela, and praised the Maduro regime. And he said, prior to Venezuelan collapse, he said that the American dream is more likely to be realized in South America than it is to be realized in the United States.
You know what Bush said about
pre-collapse?
You know what Bush said about Putin?
What? He's a nice guy.
He knew he could trust him because he was wearing a crucifix, and he knew he was a good guy. Like, bro,
Bush is dumb sometimes. What does that? What does that have to do with anything?
You're like willing to be and say that Sanders wants to institute 1,000-year communist Reich in America because he fucking
if he could,
honeymooned.
he can't.
Your evidence for that is honeymoon in Soviet Union. He went to Cuba.
Yep, and also praising the Maduro regime as recently as 2006, 2004. The Maduro regime. You understand, the Maduro regime is explicitly socialist, and that they nationalized the oil in order to decommodify basic human needs and have workers own the means of production. As a result, capital withdrew, and as a result of that,
I'm not a fan of Chavismo.
Collapsed.
I'm not a fan of Chavismo. I'm not a fan of Maduro. I think they suck. I don't think Bernie is
dude. But do you understand how this is small comfort when what I'm saying is, hey, bro, listen, I'm really anxious and defensive of the far right, but I want to fight for the right wing that I want to see in the future. And you're like, hey, bro, the water's warm. Over here, listen. Let me splash. Let me splash the water around in the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is great.
Your talents,
Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Mamdani, they're not that bad, bro. They're actually chill, bro.
If you want to fight for this,
they love the food that you love, bro.
If you want to fight for the soul of a party, you're going to have better luck in the Democratic Party than in the Republican Party.
I would, but it's politically. It's almost like too politically.
You want the cachet. You want the cachet of saying you're the last good Republican. Because it feels good.
You don't want me in the Democratic Party.
You need me on that wall. You want me on that wall. You say words like honor, duty, respect. We say them as a
honor, courage, and commitment. Yes,
whatever.
Yes. No,
you use them as a punchline.
Dude, you don't want me because if I came over there, you guys have so many people who are low T. It's bad, and then not only are so many people low T, I would red pill everyone on guns. You guys would effectively become a pro-gun party.
Why not? Why not do it if you're
you would
if you're
also
so confident?
Be Islamophobic, and it would be based.
If you're so confident, why not do it? You're not going to get anywhere with these freaks. I mean, the new generation that you're talking about, the new guard, they're Nazis.
Well, you know where I'm really going to stay? I'm going to stay in the coalition of girl hottists. I'm going to stay with the half of my audience who are maybe 60%. Half of my audience who are right-wing liberals who think liberals are pussies. And I'm going to stick with the libertarians and conservatarians who actually want to preserve the Republican.
You guys are all Democrats in denial. You're Republican.
My libertarians would piss you the fuck off.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure you have some conservatives in your audience, but you yourself, you voted for Kamala. You yourself, you are basically see the Democratic Party as the only viable opportunity to save the country. You want me to win. Okay. You want Democrats to win.
Okay, then guess what? You guys have to be pro-natalist, pro-family, less abortions, less drugs.
You won't do shit.
More guns.
You won't do shit.
Yeah, see?
Your wife is in me DMs.
That's it. That's where if it was real, if the liberals, if the Democrats, if they actually wanted me, there would have to be a drastic cultural shift.
No, I'm not saying we want you. I'm saying I'm not saying we want you. I'm saying we have you.
No, I don't think so. But anyways, the point is, if I go to war with my chat every other day over Hunter Biden being a fucking degenerate and a piece of shit, and Bonnie Blue being a fucking degenerate and a piece of shit,
you're forcing the same page. You're forcing disagreement in these conversations, debates that are as old as fucking dirt. That's what you have to do. You're not in any respect defending Trump basically on anything. You're not in any respect defending basically any Republican of any prominence, save for the last few.
But weirdly enough, the reason why I don't defend Trump is because Trump doesn't align himself with, I actually asked this to Will Chamberlain, believe it or not, and he actually had a really good answer. I was surprised he replied to me.
He blocked me.
Yeah, well, he's annoying as fuck, and he's one of the biggest Trump dick suckers on the internet.
He blocked me because I defended Hassan because he was deport Hassan. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're wrong on the legal analysis here, and he blocked me.
Yeah, so and
you're probably why are you defending Hassan from the illegal denaturalization?
If I run for president of the United States, my sole platform is firing Hassan Piker from a trebuchet into the fucking Atlantic Ocean.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
That's the basis of my entire presidency. So anyways, the Will Chamberlain. So he was like, oh, anybody who goes against Trump isn't a conservative. And I was like, Trump isn't a neoconservative. He's not a constitutional conservative. He's not a fiscal conservative. He's not a social conservative. He's not a Burkean conservative. What kind of conservative is he? And what Will Chamberlain actually responded with, which I thought was coherent, national conservative. And so what NatCons are, you should Google their platform, but they're effectively like economic and demographic protectionists. That's what they are. And so the fight for the soul of the party, there's still plenty of neocons. There's still plenty of cons. There's still plenty of Burkeans. There's still plenty of all these different conservatives. They are just under the thumb of Trumpism. And so when Trump's gone, the power vacuum, that's the time to fight. And if I get bored or if I lose, then maybe I'll come over to the Democratic Party and try to make you guys pro-gun and racist.
Who's a Republican of prominence now?
And anti-abortion.
Who's a Republican of prominence that you would rally behind? It would be a capitulator. It would be someone like Nikki Haley or Sununu or Christie. Or Christie didn't.
Yeah,
maybe Christie.
Yeah, it'd be like Christie if he actually got into shape. Like if Chris Christie called me, we could lift weights together. Nikki Haley, Dan Crenshaw, basically anybody you call a rhino is probably somebody that I'm a fan of.
Yeah, but most of them are capitulators. Even Christie initially, right?
But that's where the soul of the party needs to be fought. So for instance, like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene standing up to Trump and standing up to the MAGA movement right now, I actually view that as a good sign that the coalition is.
Yeah, but they're lunatics. I agree in some sense, but they're lunatics.
Yeah, but they were okay. Massey wasn't Trump's lunatic, but MTG was. So if you have somebody who was
for different reasons
in the paint, MTG was super, super, super pro-Trump. If you have MTG breaking ranks over the Epstein files, the coalition's cracking. It's the perfect time. Chaos is a ladder.
I think your optimism is ill-fated. I think you should take the Band-Aid off, take out the stitches. You're a Democrat now. You're a conservative.
You just want
Democrat.
me to vote for Mondani. That's what you want.
I don't think you're not going to have an opportunity because the Democrats you're going to have on offer. Are you in Florida?
Yeah.
They're going to be some fucking Abigail Spanberger looking ass, some, more committed capitalist looking ass. So you're not going to have an opportunity to vote for Mamdani. But in the national election, I would expect you over JD Vance to vote for AOC. And you're now going to tell me that you would. You would vote for JD Vance. So in what sense are you?
If AOC is running as a fucking sock dem, and you gave me JD Vance, and let's say JD, this is the argument that I've actually had with myself multiple times, and I don't know how to answer the question. So let's say JD Vance, he actually becomes like a technocratic god, right? He takes like
you keep saying technocratic
liberalism mixed with American militarism, mixed with some level of like technological investment into the next generation, mixed with like free market capitalism, mixed with some kind of like technocratic design for the next generation of American cities. If he took everything that I believed in and he synthesized it into a popular platform, then and then he actually kind of like disavowed Trumpism, that would actually be something that I would have difficulty not checking the box for his name. Now, here's the thing, though. The only reason why I, like, in good conscience, I might not be able to is because of how hard he buddy fucked Ukraine and how hard he buddy fucked USAID, resulting in hundreds of thousands of deaths. That's something that doesn't wash out real easy.
Bro, he's an authoritarian. Who the fuck cares? You're like,
I'm with Buttigieg.
I'm scared of.
He's a man. He's a man who does what. He's a man of the moment.
Yeah, you're like, I'm scared of AOC because she might turn out to be authoritarian. Like JD Vance is an authoritarian, and yeah,
I think JD Vance is what you pay him to be.
Okay, in some ways, so is Trump. He's taking bribes.
No, I think Trump has a vision.
What's that vision other than enrich myself and
it's delusional. Trump's vision is delusional, but Trump's vision is that he is Napoleon. He is Alexander the Great. He is Julius Caesar. He is the great man of the American moment, called at the time of the Lord of the Rings style civilizational collapse in order to right the wrongs. And he's delusional enough to think that fucking with tariffs and shutting down immigration, he saved Western civilization. But I do think that he has like a great man mythos about himself.
So would you vote for Trump over AOC? Gun your head?
No.
But you would.
I would kill myself at the airport.
Like, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, let's fight about it another time.
Are you still going to be streaming after this?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Connor, this was great. I really just love when you and I can have a nice chat without any other bad situations or us yelling at each other and just, bros being bros. What do you think about that?
Wait, sorry. You said that you had an excellent conversation and you love hanging out and being bros being bros?
Yeah. Oh, I can't raid into you because you've disabled it. Why do you keep doing that?
I don't think I disabled it. I don't know if Valor Media Network ever set it up.
Oh yeah, you got to do that, bro. Because I want to. So guys, go follow Valor Media Network on YouTube. Go follow Counterpoints Politics on YouTube and Counterpoints 40K. Good.
Yeah. So if I could chill real quick.
Yeah.
So Counterpoints 40K is obviously one of my main channels. I break down the wonderful world of Warhammer. I also launch Counterpoints sci-fi and Star Wars. So if you want to break down Star Wars lore or science fiction lore, YouTube search those. Where I do political content though is two places. Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I'm live on Valor Media Network. VALOR Media Common Spelling Network Common Spelling. So type that in, subscribe, check me out, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., especially if Pisco isn't live. And then also on Tuesdays, I'm live on my home channel, which is Counterpoints Politics. Counterpoints Politics is where I post the VODs. And also if you donate there, it comes directly to me. Whereas with Valor Media Network, I have a rev share on the channel.
You'll keep that in mind, folks, when you're sending those super chats and everything. Appreciate you a lot, guys. Stick around just for a second. For those of you who want to, I'm just going to conclude a little bit. But Connor, always a pleasure. Let's stay in DMs and we'll talk again real soon.
Whenever it's clever, man. Setting it up for the weekly or whatever, maybe we would just have a dry convo.
Yeah.
However, whenever it feels like we're bubbling over with things that are happening, then I think we always have an excellent conversation in those moments.
100p. And also, for those of you who are following Connor, Live and Learn tonight at 7, and that'll be a lot of fun. But thank you again, Connor, and talk real soon. Much love.
All right. Appreciate you, bro.
Later.
Bye now.
Okay, folks. Hey, that was good. Good shit. You guys doing all right? Don't come to Twitch tomorrow. Just a bit of a warning. Not going to have time to do, at least not, maybe after Live and Learn or something. I was going to finish the review of the tomfoolery thing. Like the channel, folks. So sub to the channel. It's a fun little thing. You can do it on Twitch or YouTube. If you do, I'd be really appreciative. And thank you so much for the super chats, all of you. I saw some. I put some up that were there. I just didn't want to interrupt Connor when he's in his flow state and, going through all the history and shit. I'm just kidding about the Twitch thing. Come to Twitch. Come to Twitch. We'll get the YouTube chat up and running at some point. Connor won't stop the revolution. But yeah, come watch Live and Learn tonight at 7. You guys keep me young. You guys keep me happy, and we'll talk soon tonight and then maybe after.